Best I can tell is the common denominator that is bipartisan, that can be scaled across humanity, is values. You can be whatever color, shape, size, or you want to be, but we all need to share a common set of values. Let's be fair to each other. Let's be friendly. Let's be optimistic. Let's be respectful to ourselves, respectful to other people. Let's be accountable. Let's not lie, cheat, and steal. Let's look after ourselves. Let's look after each other. We're all writing our own book, you know. Every like or dislike or thing we send out, or thing we choose not to send out or share, it's being recorded. What book are we writing, I guess is the question. Values. They never go out of style.
Excuse me. I threw up in my mouth a little bit there. Even though I've seen that before. It's taken from the man himself's Instagram account. Made me vomit a little the first time I saw it. Made me vomit a little second time, third time. And now that I feel like I'm exposing it, showing it to other people, made me feel a little sick as well. What did he say there? He said, there's a couple things I really hated. I hated like the vast majority of it. Well, I just hated it, right? I hated it. But there were some things that I hated. I really hated that he said there. Don't lie, cheat, and steal, right? Okay, right. That sure, you want to preach gospel, that's fine. Why do people lie? And why do people steal generally? And why do people cheat? Well, yeah, why do people cheat? I mean, all those things, like those aren't generally things that people aspire to do. So yeah, let's just all agree that we're not going to lie, cheat, and steal. And let's be optimistic. Let's be optimistic, right? One of the reasons I'm sure people, I haven't looked at the comments yet, but I'm sure people are going to be like, well, you're on about Matthew McConaughey again. Move on, get over it. One of the reasons that I feel like I have trouble, or why he gets under my skin particularly, I'm hearing a lot of S's, so I'm going to pop that on there so there's not quite as many. One of the reasons that he gets under my skin as much as he does is because having followed him as an actor and feeling like, wow, this is a guy who, he went from rom-coms and sort of, come on, bargain basement acting, right? Trading off his looks and his charm and charisma to accepting these more challenging roles and becoming, in my eyes, he seemed like he was becoming a better actor. And I guess in my head, I sort of equated that to, well, like, look, he understands now. It seems like he understands that he's not just the guy with all the answers, right? He's taking on these roles that are more challenging and he's trying to explore things. And then he comes out with this kind of pop psychology 101 stuff that he's doing right now. And this road that is, I fear, leading to a dangerous place, where it's clear that like people just want to appease him and just want to, nobody wants to tell him, man, what the fuck was that thing you did there where you just like clicked your foot and went on, like, are you acting? Like, you're not acting right. I mean, yes, he was acting. I mean, he was right? He was being recorded, right? So if you're being recorded, I guess there's some performative element there, but he was acting as if there wasn't. So then I guess we get into the meta idea of if you're a really good actor, when you're being yourself, are you actually being yourself, or are you acting like you're being yourself if you're being recorded? And where's that line? Is it just like where, well, if there's a camera in front of you all day, eventually you forget it's there and your true self starts to come out. But anyway, yeah, Matthew McConaughey, rich, good-looking, rich movie star, wants to make sure that you do not lie or cheat or steal. Don't upset the balance of the way things are now, right? If you lie, cheat, and steal, you might do that. Let's just say that none of us are going to lie, cheat, and steal, and let's just ignore the reasons that people might lie, cheat, and steal, and what sort of people might be in a position where they are maybe not forced at gunpoint, maybe forced at gunpoint, but metaphorically forced at gunpoint to lie, cheat, and steal in order to survive and or to some extent thrive, like even just a little bit. And let's be optimistic. That's the part that also really got to me. No, do not be optimistic. Like that's the worst prescription. That is a prescription for, I'm biased here, obviously, because I'm not an optimist, right? But optimism is blinders, right? You should be a skeptic, and a skeptic requires, like, optimism should be your last bastion. That's the redoubt. That's your last redoubt. You've gone through as much as you possibly can to try and prove that something is horrible. Like, try and prove that something is horrible, and assume that things are horrible. And if you can get through all of that bullshit and get to the point where it's like, okay, well, I guess this one thing is actually pretty good, then fine. Then maybe that one thing is good. But being an optimist is you might as well say, like, just, take people at face value. And I guess there's a tautology. There's an element of, like, a tautology there, right? Like, if nobody was lying, cheating, and stealing, I guess in this utopia that he imagines and that he inhabits to a large extent, where people don't have a need to lie, cheat, and steal because they have more than they could ever possibly wish for. And if you're in that situation, I very much doubt that he does not lie. Or I very much doubt he does not lie. He probably doesn't need to cheat or steal very much anymore. He probably did when he was younger. But let's assume that, if you live in this perfect world that he is postulating, you wouldn't need to lie, cheat, or steal, and you could be optimistic because things would be what they appear to be. It's not the world that we're in right now. It's not the world that 99.9% of the world's population does not exist in that world, Matthew McConaughey. So telling them to just be optimistic and not lie, cheat, or steal in that glib fashion, and then giving it that good old boy, I got you. I know what you're talking. It's kind of George Bush coming. It's that kind of folksy Southern Texan wisdom. Fuck it. Anyway, hi. Good evening. It's April 7th, 2021. I just realized the other day that we are a quarter of the way through 2021, which I have trouble. I guess I did this. Shit. Because there was a lot of stuff that happened at the last minute here this week, which it's not really that interesting, but there's taking a week off, some things changed, something broke. I don't have an HDMI out working on my switcher, my hardware switcher right now, so I can't preview the way things look. So I had to go with a more sort of natural sort of look. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll wear this vest. And then I put it on, and then I remember looking at it and being like, oh, I don't know. But a bunch of other stuff came up, and apparently I did wear the vest and the Mandarin collar. Or I guess is that even? I don't know if you're supposed to say Mandarin. I don't know. Is this a Mandarin collar? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but taking risks. Let me say hi to people before. Hey, Flaglow and Pavi and Warp Raven and Amy. Amy's not a furry. She's a fury. I like that. Hey, Q. I'm sorry, everybody, for missing last week. It's weird. Like, I didn't do last week because I had like a little bit of like a sore throat or something. Part of it was because of work. I had to talk a lot at work that day, and I was, ironically, I had to talk a lot at work today too. So I was kind of at a point where I was feeling like it was going to be difficult for me to talk, and it would be when I get into those situations, especially if I have people calling in, I feel like I'm giving them short shrift, and I didn't want to do that. But it's odd that I went ahead and missed last week, and I don't want to say this, but like it felt pretty freeing. Like it was like, oh, do I got to do this next week? And then today was rolling around, and I was just like, man, now I kind of want to do like, I want to do a less formal version of this thing that was supposed to be a less formal version of a live stream. All right, this is about to get warm, so this is breaking the flow, but soon this Coke will be worthless to me, so cheers. Oh, crap. I gotta fix that. Oh boy. If I accidentally press a button here and you see the screen change. But no, I'm not going to switch to bottles before anybody says that. All right. Yes, so same people. Lexi, good evening. Man, I missed out on some conversation here before I came on. So hope I can get to the bottom. Good evening, Chels. Oh, okay. Well, good luck tomorrow. Hope that you can sleep well. What kind of furry would I be? I'm discouraging that sort of talk. I don't think I would be a furry. Although, if I were, this is all, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's reset, and I'm going to have to, please bear with me this evening. Okay, yeah, capybara would be okay if I had to choose one. But I'm not engaging in this discussion. Good evening, Lisa. How are you doing? Nick, hi. Elksy, Colorful Dreams. Skeleton Sinner. I'm glad that you have been returning lately. Nasha, thank gosh that Nasha is here. And she has gushers. I used to really like those when I was younger, but they kind of gross me out now. Like the idea of that, like really jelly, any kind of gelatiny thing grosses me out now. Not sure why. Hi, Maddie. Warp Raven, oh no, it's this guy again. I'm assuming you were talking about Matt, not me, but maybe you were talking about me, but in that case, yes, it is. Well, in both cases, it was that guy again. Yes. Hi, Chelsea. I think I said this before, but yeah, I love your avatar. Oh, hey, Carolyn, how are you doing? Carolyn wrote an awesome article. It was a Medium. It was a blog. It was on her blog. And I gotta say, I almost didn't read it because it was superhero, because it had superheroes talked about. I don't want to. If you choose to read it, which I think you should, it's a great article. Don't be put off by the fact that there's a superhero on the thumbnail. It is. integral, but somehow incidental also. It was amazing. Yeah, really, really good. Good evening. Yeah, you gotta, that's his next book after Green Lights. It's just gonna be values. Values. Yeah, he is. He's super hot. Like, I mean, I think he still is, right? And it's not an air raid siren. No, yeah, it's a. Oh, it's a fire truck. I don't know if you could see the reflected light. Reflected. I could see it reflecting off the door here. So, but anyway. Yeah, he's really good looking, very charismatic, and an extremely talented actor. And what else? I mean, he wins at everything except possibly intelligence. I'm sorry to say. And it's not that I don't think he's a smart guy, and I could certainly be wrong. And maybe this is arrogant and asshole-ish of me to say, right? But he doesn't strike me as one who rationalizes particularly well, or processes new information, or processes problematic information. And I think he's kind of a garbage in, garbage out kind of person, I guess, to put it in a pithy little couple of words. Oh, that's it's a problem with being live. You'd say shit like that. You can't take it back, can you? My name is Purple. Hi. Celine. Hi. Good evening. Depressing. Well, almost every one of these. I think you'd be hard pressed to find one of these that was not depressing in some way. This is definitely not the way to get me to move on from a subject. Saying it's depressing would make me want to harp on it. Oh man. I deserve it. Hey, oh, look, Xava has a new avatar. I like it. How are you doing, Xava? Yeah, exactly right. Like, do you give this up? Or, and what is a public personality? Like, social media has turned everyone into a public personality now, it seems. So, yep, exactly, Carolyn. And thank you. I don't have the hat. If I could only get the hat. I actually do have a hat I'm not going to get the hat. And I'm not going to make fun of a group of people. I didn't intend to look Amish. Gosh. Well, Q, like the opposite of going on, like you almost might think, like if I were to say in the description that there's going to be a lot of tangents, that then maybe that would be a way via reverse psychology to get me to stay on point. Unfortunately, that is not the way it works, I don't think. Hey, Hextech Gunblade, how are you doing? Oh, Fleglo's being nice. It's not appropriate, like it's a dress vest, but like a linen shirt. So, but I love the weather lately. I've been able to, I don't know if you can tell, probably from the LUT or whatever, but I've gotten quite a bit of sun, and I enjoy that. LQ, good evening. Almost back down to the bottom here, and we can go back to me going on another tangent about something. Carolyn, good evening. We all watched, or some of us watched Midsummer on Sunday over on Discord. And I think 2 weeks ago we watched Hereditary. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I was only able to pop in a bit, but I tried to pop in at the moments where I knew there were particular things happening. And I wanted to. I just love seeing reactions. I'm so addicted to it. Like I was even doing it before this tonight. I was watching more React videos, and like, what does that give you or me? It satisfies that thing. Like when, if you have a partner and you want them to see something and you want to see how they react to it, and now, stuck in this quarantine state. Oh, fuck. Sorry, I hurt my leg on a scooter. And it's still bugging me. It's almost a week ago now. But the thing is, I haven't stopped scooting, so I think I keep re-injuring it, essentially. Oh, Elxie, you were on your break. Oh, that's cool. I hope you have a good rest of your shift. I'd like to know what you do. Peridot. Oh, yeah. Oh, that'd be... I tried to pull off a Daniel Day-Lewis character once, and I don't think I would attempt it again. It's too difficult. Well, no. Didn't say that. I did not say that it was canceled. I'm not saying that it's canceled. I'm not implying that it's canceled. I just want to talk a little bit about it. What new Coke cans? What? Oh, no, Coke Zero is horrible. Coke Zero is terrible. Amazon Fresh delivered me Coke Zero by accident once, and it's been sitting in my pantry. I will not touch it, and I can't get anyone to touch it in my family either. I'm not getting the hat, Nash. I'm not going to do it. It's not really an Amish hat. Well, I have a hat right here. I'm not getting the hat. Even if I got the hat, I wouldn't put it on. All right, let me get down to the bottom here so I can... Okay. No, Coke Zero is terrible. First of all, you have Diet Coke, and then you have Coke Zero. The difference is the sweetener that they use, and then you also have Coke, the green Coke with stevia, right? There's 3 sugar-free Cokes. They're all awful. I'll be honest with you, like the one that I liked the most was, y'all probably don't remember this, but was Tab, which used saccharin. And the thing about saccharin was it was sweet. It was also a little bitter, and I liked that. Whereas the artificial sweeteners that they use nowadays are like so sweet. It's the reason I can't drink Pepsi. It kind of tastes like Pepsi. To me, Diet Coke kind of tastes like Pepsi, honestly. Coke Life. That was it. It got this. I don't care. I wouldn't. Stevia, first of all, like upsets my stomach. But I don't know. People say, "Oh, hey, Olebi, how are you doing?" Yeah, saccharin. They took it out. Like many things that I consumed in abundance in my youth, and as many of us will discover years from now about the vaccine, many of the things that that were considered safe when I was young, that we consumed a whole lot of. And then a lot of them disappeared from market. I would often, over the years, like go to the store and be like, oh, why not? They don't have Screaming Yellow Zonkers anymore. Like Screaming Yellow Zonkers were awesome. I wonder why those are gone. Because it seemed like they sold a lot, right? Or they don't have the Entenmann's Devil's Food Cake frosted donuts anymore. Like why is that gone? And then inevitably you realize it's because of a California law. Anyway, hi everybody. I don't have much of a plan tonight. I have Matthew McConaughey was one of my sucks. Matthew McConaughey sucks. That's one of my notes here. And guess what? I don't have my email up because I had to reset the scene here. Although I do have this one. Oh no, I do have it, right? So if you do want to chat, feel free to shoot me an email at this address. As long as, you have any topic that is on your mind, if you're feeling negative about Matthew McConaughey, if you really enjoy, if you were like, man, Interstellar was awesome and True Detective was great, and except for the end, and Dallas Buyers Club was great, but this guy's a douche. It makes me think like maybe he didn't. What I saw as evolution was really just maybe just acting is just not that hard. I don't know. It's weird. I attribute so much. I would probably take Daniel Day-Lewis's advice over a doctor's. And I say that knowing full well that that's the wrong thing to do. But for some reason, and there's a few people who I feel this way about. There's only a few actors I feel this way about. Daniel Day-Lewis is one of them. Maybe Morgan Freeman, maybe Morgan Freeman like 10 or 20 years ago. I don't know about now, honestly. But there are like, some people who I feel like if they advised me, I'd be like, this person has been such a font of wisdom, and every word that they've said, even though I know that they're all scripted, everything that I've ever heard them say just seemed so spot on that now this advice that they're giving me to not get the vaccine actually seems rational in their voice. I haven't gotten the vaccine yet. I'm pre-registered here in Virginia, which is where I live, Virginia, because very few people actually live in Washington, D.C., across the Potomac here in Virginia. Here in Virginia, they've got that April 18th, as does most of the rest of the U.S. April 18th, they're opening up for everybody. I've already pre-registered, but I'm hoping that I get the Johnson & Johnson, that I have the option to take the Johnson & Johnson. For stupid reasons, for just really stupid reasons. One, it's indoctrinated in me to trust Johnson & Johnson. Two, it's an older vaccine technology. Three, it's supposedly more effective against variants, although I don't know what the exact data is on that. But most importantly, it's just one shot. So, Q, this is not really valid, I don't think. That's only if you judge efficacy by contracting COVID or not by severity. Apparently Johnson & Johnson is equally as effective as Moderna and Pfizer when it comes to preventing any sort of serious disease. I don't mind getting COVID if it means I just feel like I have a cold for a couple days. Right? Oh, this is right. But talcum, to be fair, they weren't the only ones. If there's anyone who's there, there's another thing. Like, why doesn't baby powder have talcum? Why isn't it talcum powder anymore for babies? Why is it now, I don't even remember what it was, but I remember when my son was a baby, looking at the baby powder, and it was not talcum powder, it was something completely different. Because talcum powder, well, I mean talc, any of those metals, anything that's on that like right row of the periodic table, you don't want to go near that right row. Stay like in the middle. You know, carbon's like kind of in the middle there. Stay right around carbon. You're pretty safe there. You go too far down the list or towards the rare earths or the the rare earths and the metals or the radon and neon and xenon or whatever. Just stay in the center of the periodic table. Let's see. Fake name. Good evening. GGNYC. I don't think I've seen you before. Hello. Or you have a new avatar. Oh, Roman Check 75. How are you doing? The noble gases. That's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah. The rare earths. The noble gases. Allie, how are you doing? What else do I got here? Oh, okay. I got something I can talk crap about. Yeah, and AstraZeneca has now been proven that it does cause blood clots, but only to a very minute set of people. AstraZeneca is not approved by the FDA in the United States, so it's not even an option here. AstraZeneca is generally, here's my hierarchy of trust. Johnson & Johnson, probably number 1. Pfizer, number 2. AstraZeneca would have been number 3. Moderna, to me, that, like, and what a terrible way to, again, choose what you trust, but it just sounds like, you know, it's a poor choice for a company name, Moderna. You just put an A on the end of modern. You're not clever, and your vaccine is therefore not clever, which I understand doesn't follow. But this is the kind of BS that our logical brains should be fighting against every single day. But it's okay to indulge them as long as it's okay to indulge ridiculous thoughts, right? That can be fun. Indulge ridiculous thoughts. Just don't act on them. These are what fantasies are, aren't they? Yes, AstraZeneca is approved in Canada and everywhere else. I think they stopped in Belgium now for underage 55 or over, I don't know, something about 55. I don't know. I'm so far away from 55. I don't think about it. Yeah, that's true, especially if you're smoking, right? I wonder if smoking has the same effect for the vaccine blood clot, if there's a correlation, if there's a causative link between smoking and blood clots from AstraZeneca as there is smoking and birth control. Interesting. A lot of people, it seems like a lot of people here have gotten at least their first dose. I got a question. Okay, I got a question. Anybody, now, okay, I guess let me frame this the right way. Does anybody in the chat feel comfortable saying that they do not want to get the vaccine, or are planning not to get the vaccine, or are planning on waiting 6 or more months before getting the vaccine to see if the rest of the world is dead? curious. Skeleton Center, I check my email when when that time comes. But didn't we talk last time? Oh, Lexi, you're 100% clear. That's awesome. You're also a teacher, aren't you? How can you not like Dolly's songs? How can you not like Jolene or 9 to 5? So nobody is fessing up. That's fine. I mean, honestly, like, if I had the option and I felt like I was not contributing to the greater horror of mutations and variants, then I would probably wait a little bit too. As it is, I'm, the moment I get the all clear, I'll take whatever they offer me. I have been like Googling the actual vaccine itself to see the bore of the needle, how long it is, because I have heard some stories about it actually being there's quite a payload, so quite a needle, and it might depend which one you're taking there. So oh, see, okay, so some people are, yeah. I mean, I think this is right, and so this is totally, like, I'm scared of the vaccine. I totally am, and have been. I mean, this thing was, it was developed under the Trump administration, right? So naturally, I'm going to be a little wary of it just right out of the gate, right? The fact that they've administered 135 million doses as of today in America. I think 100 million or something like 100 million individuals have gotten at least one dose, and that's like a third or almost a third of the population of the United States. I do feel like it's a little kind of gluttonous and nationalist, sort of the typical U.S. method of, well, we're going to make sure that we're all vaccinated, and then we'll start sharing. Johnson & Johnson is a New Jersey company. Pfizer, well, no, Pfizer's not. But regardless, right, the United States secured hundreds of millions of vaccines because the monies. So, so imagine this, right? You're a country with nowhere near the pull or the power or the resources of the United States, but you have millions of people in your country who are going to die if they are not vaccinated. Now, you are at the summit wherein it's being determined who is, or it wasn't even a multilateral thing, right? It was just like people negotiating with different companies, right? I think there was some international regulation, but imagine you are this country, this sort of underprivileged country, trying to get as many vaccines as you can. Do you A, lie, B, cheat, or C, steal, or D, values? The answer is D, value. According to Matthew McConaughey. Germany was also given. I've heard that Germans are generally more reluctant to take the vaccine, and it seems like their progress towards vaccination is not great, right? Both of you had the right idea. Warp Raven and Skeleton Center. All of the above. Well, there was another world leader who kind of had that same idea. Nasha, I'm not comparing you with that world leader, whose name I shan't mention, but it rhymes with Bitler. Yeah, see, this is the thing, right? For me, like if I get my first Pfizer shot and I get bad reaction to it, there's a chance that I might not go for that second shot. So that's another reason why, like, I'd rather just one and done, and I'm then forced to deal with the side effects, and there's no second one. Well, next year, to go. But yeah, I do feel like America is being greedy and controlling with their vaccine doses. I wonder how many vaccines are going to waste that could have been used in other countries. It does seem like. Oh, Isra. By the way, good evening, Isra. I didn't know this. You would think it would be the other way around. I would think if you had COVID, you would already have antibodies. Oh, wait. So that's exactly why it would be more rough. You would already have antibodies, so it would already mount the immune response. You wouldn't have to build the immune response as much because you'd already have it. Right. Yes. Of course. Lisa, have you had a lot of shots? Like just in terms of like rated on shots from like a gamma globulin shot, where it's basically like syrup that they're trying to push through that needle. And the needle is like that thick, right? As opposed to like just a saline injection or something, right? What is the pain ratio? 1 to 10. Yeah, my mother got both of her Pfizer shots and had absolutely no side effects at all, and it made me worried. I was like, "Oh, do you just not have an immune system?" Clearly, she does. Being a little bit facetious there. Yeah, are we? There's always opportunities, right, through greed and corruption and hoarding and treating people horribly, to create future generations of hatred and sort of these carried resentments that blossom into anti-blank sentiment, where blank is whatever the country or people are who were being horrible to you. If you were beat up as a child over and over again, I'm not saying it's an excuse. I'm saying I can't stand it when you say like, well, I don't care what happened to you. Like, I don't care what happened to you. Like, this is wrong and you shouldn't do it. Yeah, I'm never in that case where we're talking about that kind of stuff. I'm never arguing that the answer is not to get revenge. I'm saying, why don't we understand the problem? Because you're not going to remove the tendency of human nature to want to take revenge for slights committed against you, or a nation of people, a royal you. So why don't we, nip it in the bud, address the source instead of continually trying to plug all the little leaks. Doesn't work. When I distinctly remember, I have no idea what age I was, right? I know I was in kindergarten or above, but I remember the moment when tag became boring to me. I remember loving it. The idea of being like just, horrifying, and then, running and being outside and feeling free and, chasing others and There was a lot about tag. Tag as a game, very simple. The underlying mechanics were extremely simple, right? You're it, and you run around and try and tag someone else, and then they're it, and they run around and try and tag someone else. Maybe you add like a home base that's safe or something like that. Maybe you don't, right? But I remember the point at which tag got a little boring to me. And then I remember when we started to play freeze tag. And freeze tag blew my mind. So I'm sure everybody knows what freeze tag is, right? So tag is person's it, they touch you, you're it, you touch someone else, they're it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on. Doesn't end until it's time for dinner, whatever it is. Freeze tag is if the person who's it touches you, you can't move unless someone else comes and touches you again, thereby releasing you from your frozen state. And the game has a definite ending, which is either the person who, well, actually, no, it doesn't. It has more of an ending. It has a goal ending, right? Which is the person who's it freezes everybody. And then if everybody's frozen, nobody can be unfrozen. End of game, right? And there you've taken a game which can only end through fatigue, and you've given it sort of a definite, like, here's the goal, the person who's it freezes everybody. And I remember when we started playing freeze tag and being like, this is like so much better than tag. Like there's so much, I'm enjoying this so much more. And of course, as a kid, I couldn't really quantify what it was about freeze tag that was so much better than tag. But as I got older, and I started being interested in game design, that was one of the things that I remember thinking about and thinking, well, why is really not, there wasn't that much added. What is it about freeze tag that makes it so much better of a game than tag? And it's really obvious, right, to probably everybody here. At one point, it wasn't to me. Like I had to think about it, right? But the obvious part to me is it becomes a co-op game instead of every person for themselves game, which tag is an every person for yourself game. You're just trying to get rid of the it, and once you've gotten rid of the it, you're trying to outrun your slower friends so that you don't get the it anymore. The moment you start playing freeze tag, you are working as a group to try and unfreeze people who are frozen. You might be taking risks to unfreeze people who are frozen. Maybe you don't, right? Like maybe you're one of those kids who's like, I'm not that fast a runner, and that frozen person is kind of out in the open. If I go and freeze that person, the it is definitely going to see me and be able to freeze me. Now, that's a self-correcting mechanism, which is an awesome game design principle, because if you behave in a selfish manner in freeze tag, people like these countries that are not getting their vaccines I'm sticking by that. That is the tenuous link between going from talking about countries that are not fairly getting an equitable distribution of vaccines and talking about why freeze tag is so much better than tag. If you choose to be one of those people who doesn't rescue others, then they're going to remember that. And when you're frozen, they're not going to rescue you. So freeze tag becomes like so much more of a complicated social game than tag by only kind of really adding like one rule. And when you kind of learn that rule, and as you play it, you don't need to learn any other rules. You just learn that one added rule, and all these extra levels of gameplay to freeze tag become evident to you, whether you know it or not. It's why I loved freeze tag so much more than regular tag. I was like, this is just a much better game. I'm enjoying myself much more, and for a longer period of time. When I was a kid, I wasn't exactly sure why, but now looking back on it, it's that added level of social complexity and the tribal kind of aspect of it, and working together to defeat a common enemy, right? And and it could be anybody, right, at any time, because it is not determined. Just because you're it now doesn't mean you're going to be it next round. And the other cool thing about that is it is always forgiven, right? You could be it, and then the next round you're not it, and you're frozen, and somebody's not going to not unfreeze you because you were it the last round. That wasn't your fault. You were it. But if you didn't unfreeze this person in the last round and you weren't it, then they're probably not going to, or they will be less likely to want to unfreeze you. So I think about that sometimes, like when, I know we've talked about before, like we've talked about some game design stuff before. And one of the things, and I saw this came up, and this is really annoying when this happens, but came up on either Polygon or Kotaku or one of those game websites, where someone started talking about like the complexities of a door in video games. But it was being reported and like talked about as if this was like a breakthrough of like, oh, how complex doors are. But that has long been a rubric, like even in the 90s or maybe the early aughts. Like that is certainly ever since there's been 3D games, but even before that, right? That has been like a rubric that people have talked about. It's been documented. Like if you want to, what I would always say to people, including my own family, when I was doing game design, and they were like, well, what is game design? They're like, well, like how hard is it? And my response would often be, when I was being a bit of a dick, which would be like, okay, game design's easy. Tell me how a door works. Like, tell me, that's it. Like the simplest element, right? You see them all around you in everyday life. You're representing them in a game. Designing games is easy. How does a door work? And then quickly, you can kind of see that it's actually really, really complex. So I get a big kick out of extremely simple design mechanics that add complexity without adding a cognitive load or a commensurate cognitive load. So if freeze tag was something like, okay, so it's tag, but then you freeze if you touch someone, they get frozen they have to count backwards from 17. And then when they reach 0, if someone hasn't touched them by the time that they reach 0, then they have to go back to home base, and then they have to wait at home base until, like, if you had added a whole bunch of different rules, at some point I would have not found it that fun. But the fact that it was such a simple addition that somehow exponentially increased the complexity of the interaction without increasing the cognitive load at the same time was just brilliant. So if you're gonna play freeze tag with other countries with the vaccine, then you don't get an excuse for being it. You don't get a get out of jail free card in the future. All right. This is what happens if I spend a week away, I talk a bunch of crap. Let's see. Let me see what people said about this stuff. People are talking about me in a beret? What? What is going on? Le chat de la souris. Des jupons gougélés, le silence, nos baridons, olé ensemble, mettre les monts zulati dodo. This is the French I know. I know some very vulgar Spanish. Un paso de un circo ambulante. La quería meter la pinga de elefante. Y elefante que no era del oficio. Con la trompa se tapaba el orificio. ¿Qué? No es malo. Es divertido. I don't know what you were saying was brilliant, but thank you for saying something was brilliant. Oh man, Werewolf. God. That's another super simple game that, although I would... Mafia, which became Werewolves of Miller's Hollow, which has countless variations now and like a whole bunch of different, different roles that you play now to make the game a little more interesting. I love that game, but I actually do love like the different and the archer and the lovers and like the different things that they added. I do like those other things. Sorry, I'm just going through what people said while I was rambling. Look, I was always chosen last. Like, I was the kid that was chosen last. When I watched Freaks and Geeks, like, I was like, oh yeah, that was me, definitely. Oh, look, I still have... No, not much, just a little bit. Phys Ed for me was a game of trying to escape going to Phys Ed, to trying to escape showering, because I did not want to be naked in front of a bunch of other people. Like, ever. I mean, that's still... I gotta be honest with you, like, that seems weird to me, like, now. Like, I don't feel like that should be going on. Especially like in like junior high, like at the point where you're most vulnerable and probably like in a state of your body is changing, your hormones are going crazy, you don't know what's going on, nobody knows what's going on. People are telling you that things will be okay at some point, but as far as like your own person, as you're concerned, right, things are just nuts and nothing is ever going to be all right, and you're a freak and everything sucks, and then you're getting told, oh yeah, and starting next year you have to take showers in phys ed. My God, does that still go on? It just seems to me like, first of all, like it's just a liability for schools. Outside of all the other implications, like it just seems like something that schools would say, yeah, you know what, we're not going to enforce this anymore. Actually, yeah, do people still take showers in schools after phys ed, or is it required? I understand giving the option for the people who want to be naked in front of other kids. Red Rover is communist. Please discuss. Red Rover, there's not much to Red Rover. Red Rover is basically just a test of arm strength, isn't it? Is hide and seek ethical? Oh, know, but I'll tell you another flashlight tag. That was a good one too, right? Sorry. And flashlight tag has a little bit of a hide and seek to it, because obviously you play at night, and one of the good strategies is to hide, because a flashlight has a long distance and a nearly instantaneous throw. Yeah, Red Rover. I guess you could, Matt. By the way, hello. I don't know that we've spoken before. Is your avatar? Is that a museum where there was just like a giant Earth that you're pushing up against? Is that an actual scale model of the Earth, or is that just a picture that you're pushing? It's hard to tell if that's a 2D Earth or a 3D Earth. I like the hurricane. It's forming there in the middle of. Wait, it's upside down. I was having trouble seeing. Okay, that's Florida at the top. No wonder there's a hurricane by it. I was born and raised in Miami, so I am familiar with Florida and their hurricanes, regardless of if you show the Earth as being oriented with the pole north or the South Pole to the top. Oh man, dodgeball is a terrible one. Dodgeball is kind of like a microcosm of junior high and high school, writ small. Well, I guess microcosm, I already said that. Nowhere do you know your place quicker or with more humiliation than dodgeball. God, terrible. I do love the balls they use for dodgeball. Those, you know what I'm talking about. They're the kind of clay-colored, textured. I don't know if they're actual rubber or not, but they make a ping when you bounce them, and they're lovely. Sorry, I'm getting to the end here. Oh, is this how that? Okay, I missed the inciting comment, Nick. I did smoke at a very young age. I'm ashamed. I'm not ashamed. I did smoke when I was very young. And then I took up smoking again after high school for about 8 years, and then I stopped. So I stopped like in 2006, 2007. And apart from an odd ciggy here or there, I don't smoke. French singing is not on the bingo card. Well, that's the only time that it'll happen there. So, oh wait, okay, so were we not talking about the same werewolf? I was talking about Werewolves of Miller's Hollow, where a bunch of people get together and there's a game master, and certain people in the crowd are deemed werewolves, but the other people don't know it, and they're villagers, and the werewolves try to kill the villagers, and the villagers try to hang the werewolves. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, he was covering his something with his trunk. Yes. Those are the things that I learned, right? Those are just like, oh man, unfortunate, right? I had that very stereotypical when I was young. Like we had a Ecuadorian housekeeper. I don't know if you heard that. It sounded like a firework. We had an Ecuadorian housekeeper who was very much like a a mother or a grandma, kind of more like a grandmother, or felt like a grandmother to me. And I remember that was one of the things, like when we fell into poverty, or not poverty, we were above the poverty line, but when we lost all of our money, and we could no longer afford, obviously, to have a housekeeper. For me at that age, right? For me, it was like, I didn't understand that. Like, I was just kind of like, what? This person is like my grandmother. Like, what are you talking about? Like, she's just not going to be here anymore. Like, it was very odd. But yeah, she taught me a bunch of things that I probably shouldn't have known. But was great. I loved her. I still do. She's probably dead. All right. Getting back down to the bottom here. Dodgeball, bingo, mud shrews. Sir, I've been watching your... Don't call me sir, you make me feel old. Oh, that's super kind. I really like your picture there too. I know that it's like... that was my modus operandi for my first few years of doing ASMR. I don't really like doing it anymore. So probably not. You know, if it were like a situation where, I don't know, it would have to be more complicated than I am a serial killer and you are my prey. Like, I'm not doing that kind of fantasy indulgence anymore. And I didn't really realize, I mean, I should have. I was certainly old enough. I didn't really realize, I think, really I should take those videos down. Oof. That's a conundrum. See, I like that. I like that. It feels like I'm in a lone little wooden church on the prairie. There's nothing else around. And then Slash walks out of the church and starts playing a guitar solo. That would be lovely. Yeah, I don't know about Star Wars. Not into it. Not that into Star Wars anymore. I apologize. It's been a long time. So, like that guy, or I'm sorry, I'm assuming gender there. The person who had the mushroom picture. It's summer, or it's like spring, or it's something, whatever. It was 80 degrees out today. So I was going outside and reveling in doing the things that I have not been able to do. All of this horrible, horrible winter has been just a nightmare the entire time. I hate winter. I know I've made that clear before. There's a new button here on eCam, and I really want to press it. It says preview mode, and it's got a little pen, and I don't know what it's going to do when I click it, but I'm about to click it. I don't know. What did that just do? It just gave me like a little... Did anything happen there when I did that? So I pushed the button. It gave me a little pop out. It said that I was in preview mode. Did it pause the video when I did that? Nothing? Nothing happened. It had like this pen, so I assumed it was Yeah, it's showing 2, and then it's saying I can publish or go back to live mode. I'm gonna have to read up on this. So sorry about that. Got y'all's hopes up that preview mode might do something neat, and it didn't. I'm sorry. Nasha, what's going on? A random person died, but I got $1 million. I gotta tell you, I don't know. Would I press that button? I wouldn't. I would not press that button. Of course not. 2 million. No, I still wouldn't press that. Speaking of killing people for money and ethical dilemmas, I've done this so that you don't have to. Over the past week, I decided to watch all of the Saw movies because they're on HBO Max, and I had seen the original Saw. I saw Saw a long time ago, and I think maybe I had like caught a bit of one of the other ones, but I didn't know. Like I didn't know what I had seen or not seen. Oh, Nasha, I'm sorry about this. I hope you adjust to it, or change to a new one that works better. I know this can be a pain in the butt. So anyway, I watched 6 Saw movies. Approximately 9 hours of Saw. And I can give you all the rundown. I did it so you don't have to. First of all, a lot of people said Saw was revolutionary and did torture horror porn or something like that, right? That shit did not start with Saw. And Saw is so goofy that there's not, I didn't watch, at any point in the Saw movies, there was not one point where I was like, maybe there was one point in one of the movies, but generally this stuff was just so goofy that I didn't feel any tension or discomfort or concern, and the gore looked so bad and just cheesy, and the acting is very, with the exception of the guy who plays Jigsaw. If you've seen the other Saw movies, there's Shawnee Smith, who I used to love when I was younger, right? I had a crush on her when I was younger, and she's okay, right? She's passable. The guy who plays Jigsaw, who is the killer, whatever, he's good. He's good. He looks good, and he just kind of delivers he's a lot of gravitas in his delivery. Everyone else in every one of those movies, including the new kid on the block, is shit. And the weird thing to me, or one of the weird things to me is there's a little bit of a Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey conundrum going on in the Saw 3 through Saw 5, where you have these two characters who, if I saw them, if I were walking past a casting office, I would assume they were going for the same part. They're middle-aged, white, kind of paunchy, slightly bloated, overly made-up white men who look overly made up. It looks like it definitely has the Edge of Night or some other soap opera feel to it when you're watching it. So you have these two characters that look very similar, speak very similar. they're both police officers. Like it's a strange dynamic. It's a strange thing to do in a movie. This is not Saw 1. This is post Carrie Ellis, right? Who was horrible in Saw. Like, I was shocked. I always wondered. I was always like, well, Princess Bride was so good. What the hell happened to Carrie Ellis? And the truth is, he's not much of an actor, I guess, right? But anyway, so Saw is basically like, the first Saw would have been a pretty good Twilight Zone episode or 30-minute Creepshow episode or something like that. And I think it was actually like in shorter form originally. It's way too drawn out. It is definitely one of those movies where like you're frustrated as hell because there's so many opportunities for somebody to pick up a gun and kill someone, but instead they pick up a gun and point it at the person and give them 10 minutes to run away, right? Or just decide to shoot them in the foot, right? Like there's so much of that. And then every other Saw after that is essentially like, and here's what actually happened, right? Each one, and they keep doing this. And every time they did it, I was like, they're adding another layer onto this bullshit? And sorry, there's a little bit of spoilers for Saw, but there's nothing really worth spoiling. It's just like, they keep doing this thing where it's like, well, but that scene from the original Saw, like now we're in Saw 3 or whatever, we're going to show you how that was set up, right? It's almost like a behind the scenes for Saw. And then who was helping Jigsaw set this thing up? And then in Saw 5, then it's like, but remember that scene that from Saw 1 that in Saw 3 we went back to and we showed you how it was set up? Well, we didn't show you that there was another secret door and there's another person who's back there. And then they keep doing that. It's like it's Russian dolls, turtles all the way down. It's laughable. It was, and I don't understand it. I get the name is, compelling. I think the artwork, the way that they get you in there, the looking, they sell it well. They have a good thumbnail. They have a good value proposition, I suppose. But man, those are some of the worst movies I've ever seen. And they're not scary. And they're not even really like that horrible. It's just like, it's so outrageous that it's just goofy. And then the premises get more and more sort of convoluted and silly. And then I think in Saw 6, it feels like they tried to like reclaim their roots again. And it got a little bit better. There's I want to say that they always make it like there's a twist, but man, those ain't twists. That's not what a twist is, like you can't do the 60s era Twilight Zone twist, in a modern movie and call it a twist. That's at this point, that's just an expected turn of events that people saw coming from the moment that you started laying the groundwork for it. You're canceling us for hating on Saw. Oh, man. Well, I mean, sorry. I do think Jigsaw, I think the premise is good. I think the character of Jigsaw is good. And I think the actor portraying him is good. It's just everything else they got so wrong. And I cannot believe how horrible the acting is. I mean, they had money. Those movies made tons of money. Why do they look so bad? Those movies made tons of money. They must cost nothing to fucking make because they're always in like a couple of rooms that look the same. They spend $1 million on, this contraption that looks distressed, right? But that's nothing compared to the cost of traveling around the world with a full film crew that you have to do on these, larger budget movies that make similar returns at the box office. It just seems like they were not investing much back into Saw, either from the perspective of getting people who could act to writing interesting things. I will say Saw 6 was a little better, but I don't yet know if that was because because my senses were just completely dulled by the tripe that was Saws 2 through 5. So, yeah, if you have HBO Max, all the Saws are on HBO Max until the end of the month. Flaglow, oh, good night, Flaglow. Thank you for coming out. If you were ever put off Saw because you were like, I'm not into torture porn, Saw is not torture porn. Saw is like, do you want to see people acting so ridiculous and like situations that are so ridiculous that they're so far detached from any semblance of reality that they don't evoke a reaction. At least to me, they didn't evoke any reaction whatsoever. None of them. Do you want to see like 500 huge needles filled with acid attached to this giant sort of contraption that kind of slams down, and then there's like they're Dungeons and Dragons level traps. That's what we're talking about here. In fact, a lot of them remind me of the Traps books, which I don't have here, but a lot of them remind me of, say, going through Tomb of Horrors in Dungeons and Dragons. Is there a new Saw movie? I thought maybe they'd given up at this point. Like, I don't know what ground there is for them to mine. Well, okay. So, you know what, Crimes in Space? If you approach it that way, and that's what you're expecting, then Saw delivers. Okay? Look, I kind of liked Cabin in the Woods, but Cabin in the Woods was way better acted and looked 100 times better than Saw ever did. Okay, did anybody, okay, I'm going to stop talking about Saw here. And I'm going to pull up the old, why did it do that? I didn't ask it to do this. There was an eCam update. It did some stuff. Things have changed in the last few weeks. Not entirely sure that everything is going to go the way that I expect it to. Okay, I got even the interview window is different now. Bandwidth statistics. Oh, I want to see this. Oh my God, this bandwidth is horrible. Is it super laggy for you guys? Because these are accurate numbers. I'm surprised you're seeing me at all. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. Have a couple of people here. Let's send the link. Interview window. Okay, yes, that is still the same. They didn't change everything. So I'm sending some responses to some emails if people want to talk. I am spamming. So I'm sending out a lot here. I guess because it was 2 weeks away, a bunch of people want to talk. So I'm just going to go by. I'm probably only going to be able to talk to like 2 or 3 people. But I'm just going to go by who responds first. I'm not going to go by who I've spoken to before or not spoken to before. Okay. Oh, look at this. That was fast. That was a fast response. Yes, Elijah, I responded to you. But first person to call in was, and she's been on before. You know her and love her. Carolyn. Oh, damn it! It's Petit.
It's Pettit. It's
Pettit.
Pettit.
Sorry, I think I had that problem last time where I was trying to.
It's the most common thing in the world, and I mean, I understand the impulse because again, Petit is like the correct French pronunciation, but it has been Americanized, so it's Pettit, but yeah, I don't object to a more Frenchified.
I'll just call you Carolyn.
Flair. Yeah, Carolyn. That part is accurate. Usually when I go to Starbucks and I tell them my name is Carolyn, they write it on the cup as Caroline for whatever reason. So anyway,
this is similar to when I was able to choose my. I thought I was being very clever when I was able to choose my cell phone number, which I was just about to say it. Oh my God, that would be. My cell phone number that I chose, although it looks good, when you say it to somebody, it does not sound like. I always end up having to write it down or say it very, very specifically. I originally chose it because I thought it would be like super easy for other people to remember and to tell to other people. But it ended up not translating. I did not think it through. So.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I know. So what did you think of Saw? Of all the Saw?
No, never seen a Saw movie. And I was, wary because torture porn, true torture porn has a way of getting lodged in my brain and really fucking me up. And I kind of thought, it might be that. But, it does actually sound like something I might enjoy if I approach it on the terms that it might be some kind of like cheesy sort of, overblown kind of B-movie silliness.
Exactly. It is like a guilty pleasure, and not like in the like even when you say cheesy or B-movie, it's not like I remember when I was younger, right? Like Faces of Death, right? And all those snuff movies that may or may not have been legitimate or whatever, but they were very big when I was younger, and it was like, oh, if you were able to get one of these tapes and like a bunch of 13, 14-year-olds getting around and like, we're going to watch this now.
Yes, I had me and some friends also rented Faces of Death once. It was like sort of rite of passage at some point,
It's not even like close to that. Like it's just, it's just like I want to say it's Grand Guignol? Grand Guignol? I want to say Guignol, but I know it's not Guignol. Grand Guignol.
Yeah. I only ever read that term, so I don't know how it's pronounced, but I know what you're referring to.
I can spell it, but I'm not sure how to say it. But it's something like that, yeah. But I think if you like the first one, well, no, there's no.
It's fine.
It actually goes downhill after the first one, but it might go downhill in a way that if you're, like you said, accepting it for what it is, you might like it.
Cool. I'll put it on my list.
Yeah. How have you been?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That doesn't sound...
well, I don't know. I mean, what do I say? Like, it's not much has changed, We're still on lockdown. I'm still waiting for the vaccine. Just kind of feel like I'm riding out this storm, and one day still bleeds into the next, and they all are just this haze of days, and it's like this is a time of survival, It's a time of survival, and I'm surviving, and I think that's if all I can say is that I survived this time, I think that's okay, right? I appreciate the tweets I've seen lately where people are like, it's okay if you didn't learn a language. It's okay if you, gained weight or ate, whatever. Like, all those things are fine, like, because you're just fucking surviving, right? So,
that is,
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a question. Please, don't answer it if you don't want to. But do you have a psychiatrist? Do you see a therapist or a psychiatrist?
Not right now. I've had therapists in the past, and actually, I've been like thinking about just trying to start up therapy again. But I'm because I recognize like this is not. I did not like. If this is too heavy, please let me know. I didn't like.
Go
This is
for it.
not meant to be like a proxy therapy session or whatever. But like the other day I was like, well, gosh, I really need to come to terms with the fact that I'm depressed right now. I am like I think I'm like clinically depressed, but I've had, therapy can be really like a hit or miss experience because like I'm aware of what the issues are in my life. I'm aware that like I'm dealing with loneliness. I'm aware that as a trans person in a transphobic world, I'm like on guard a lot of the time, and it's like that hypervigilance can be draining, and all of these things. And sometimes when you have a therapist, they will, depending on them and your relationship with them and everything, they might kind of try to like no amount of thinking in my mind can or should sort of make me okay with existing in a transphobic world, right? Like I shouldn't adapt to like being okay with like the world
Right.
as it is. But and I feel like sometimes therapy can be a little like therapists can be dismissive of like the realities of like, hey, look, like yes, I know I can do things about my mindset and the way that I think about myself and the world that are beneficial, but don't expect me to like act like it's all in my head when like there are legitimate issues that I'm struggling with that are external, right? I don't know. It's complicated.
But that's when you were in therapy, you found that like a lot of times therapists were approaching it that way, like it's your problem to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in this current like phase of sort of being like, okay, well, realizing, okay, I'm depressed. Now what do I do? Is therapy really like the best next step? Like, or should I try to like deal with it in other ways? I'm sort of reflecting back on and realizing that it's possible that an experience with a therapist might just add to my like frustration and exasperation and sort of be this is a term that's overused these days, but maybe a little bit like gaslighty of like if it makes it all about me, but I don't know, like it could also be beneficial, like so I'm just weighing my options right now with regard to that.
Yeah, the reason that I brought it up was because I see a psychiatrist every Zoom a psychiatrist every week, and I'm at the point now where like I don't know what to say to them anymore because it's just like okay, nothing is going on, like
right.
everything is exactly the same as it was a week ago. I don't know what you want me to talk about for the next hour.
Yeah, and I mean, but that's an issue that I have even with like my friends too. Like when I'll talk to a friend, friends will be like, "How's it going?" And I'm like, "Well, it's kind of shitty to be honest, but it's the same. It's shitty in the same way as it was last week and the week before that and the week before that. So like, what do I say about it? Because you already kind of know what the deal is, and so at a certain point, the problem in my life, isn't like things that are happening. It's the fact that nothing is happening. Like that's literally the source of the issue. It for me is like, well, I know I need more close connections. I need friends. I need like more of a personal life, etc. And like that's just not happening. And I don't know exactly how to make it happen. And so it's weird. Like how do you talk about like an absence of something or a lack of something as a problem when there's nothing there to talk about, and that's the problem. Fun.
So I understand, or well, obviously I don't. I sympathize and feel somewhat of that as well, right?
Sure.
And it does seem like everything is just kind of like on pause, right? Until and I do feel like it's just like I'm just like looking at the clock. I'm just like waiting, like trying to get through to this. As you mentioned before, it's like almost, it's not fictional, I guess, because there is, at least for North America, for the United States, there is like a very sort of aggressive date and where we can actually be out and doing, and the whole Biden talking about the 4th of July and being able to have like small gatherings on the 4th of July, all that kind of stuff. But it is like, man, combined with like winter, which I know, well, I guess you didn't really have winter there.
Not so much here in California.
Yeah.
Not really, but
combined with that, it was just, I mean, a total mess. But I wanted to say, I did say this in chat, but I wanted to say again, that article that you wrote, well, it was a blog post, right?
It's a piece, it's a blog post. I don't know what to call it, but it is a thing I wrote. Yeah.
I don't take this the wrong way, right? I never.
Oh. I'm not a superhero movie person either. Okay. Like, and so that's why, like, I was actually, and I don't love this. Like, I don't love Justice League. To be clear, like, I'm not saying it's like some 5-star film. It just sometimes sometimes your reaction to a work of art or entertainment can surprise you, and this was certainly a case of that. Where, I mean, to me, not to rag on the MCU. I don't normally I find those films generally pretty bland, and at least this film I felt had a bit more of like and I'm certainly not a Zack Snyder fan, but it had a directorial identity, which gave it to me a little bit more character than maybe a lot of MCU films had, and yeah, but it's not, I'm way more of a art house movie person, right? You're way more likely to find me watching stuff on Criterion.com or whatever than a superhero film. So it was not it was definitely one of those cases where this film this film spoke to me in a way that I was completely not expecting, and that's the way that that's just the way it goes sometimes.
That's what you brought to it. I know that
sure,
people have talked before, right, about this idea of conscious consumption, right? And even if you're watching a movie that like Saw, right? A movie is a piece of trash, right? But if you go into it with a certain mindset, or just, it could just be based on the circumstances of where you are in your life or what's going on around you, it might be the impetus for these other thoughts that come from it. And that's what it seemed like was happening in the article that you wrote. I'm sure I'm not sure, but I'm guessing you didn't think about it beforehand and weren't like, well, I'm going to sit down now and watch Justice League. And
No, absolutely not. I mean, I guess I was, I read a few reviews by critics who I expect that at least indicated that, they found some aspect of it interesting. And so that was well, if these critics I at least want to see what it is that they're responding to. And then in it, I found, my own, particularly the arc of a character named Cyborg, really just resonated with me. And but I think I think a lot of criticism tries to erase this, but I think we all bring our lives and our experiences with us into our interactions with every film, every book, every game that we play, what have you. And if we're open to I don't know, I mean, obviously, I guess in that piece I call it writing as an act of survival, and it really does feel that way sometimes, where I think I had a lot of loneliness and a lot of just angst and negative energy, negative feelings built up, and something in that film, chiseled away at them a little bit in a way that I was able to process. And so then it becomes this thing where for the week or two after I see the film, some part of my mind, my subconscious, is just constantly mulling it over and thinking it over, and I'm just constantly getting ideas and taking notes and things, and then and then the laborious work of putting it together like a puzzle and finding the shape of it and finding what it is that my subconscious is really trying to do. And then when I'm able to put it out into the world, there is this tremendous feeling of a kind of relief and release of of having process something that was in a way beneficial and useful for me, and obviously with the hope that other people will find something in it that resonates with them, and obviously some folks have found that, and that's very
I think
that's
I
very
think
gratifying.
that's been like it seems like there was like a groundswell, right? Like a lot of people were saying very, very kind things about it.
Yeah.
And when I read it before, I had seen most of those, but for me, I definitely felt like, oh wow, that like got me, like kind of like got me in the gut, right? So I don't wish, I want you to be happy, right? But
Thanks.
if you aren't happy, I'm glad that you are able to create things like this through your unhappiness. That sounds terrible to say, but
No, but I mean, when I can like I obviously I want to escape from the loneliness and the things that the piece was about, but finding some meaning in it is better than the alternative, right? I mean, yeah. And are you familiar with the Kafka quote? I feel like you might be, but the Kafka quote of like, where he says like, a book should be the axe for the frozen sea inside you, like.
Oh, I'm actually not.
Oh yeah, so Kafka said at one point like a book should be an axe for the frozen sea inside you. He's it should grieve you like a suicide, and I'm I love that quote because I'm just big on this idea of art as something that can maybe cause us pain, but a cathartic pain, and
right.
it should really like fuck us up on some level, right? It should like shake us to the core. It should like do something it should like remind us that we're alive, and yeah. So anyway,
I agree with you 100%. I'm based on the language of that Kafka quote. I definitely want to know the context for it. Was it like, is that just a quote taken out of one of his books, or is it?
I think it's from it's not like it's not like a fictional character saying that. It's like Kafka himself.
Okay.
I don't remember if it's from a journal or what. If you Google, Kafka frozen sea, you'll find it.
It's very dramatic.
Context, which I don't recall, but yeah.
Well, yeah. So I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. Like I've felt something like kind of similar sometimes, and it a lot of times will hit me without me realize. Well, I mean, Tenet did it honestly. Like Tenet was something where I could not get that movie out of my head, and
right.
I loved that part of it, and it was very like when people were like, well, but was it a good movie? I don't know. Like maybe it was a good movie. Maybe it wasn't, but it did cause me to like, it was the first domino in this sort of chain of things that like made me think about things in a different way, or inspired me to like do things, or, try and create something out of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that I sat down and had, the most fun 2.5 hours of my life when I was watching it. Right. So yeah, that Kafka quote I think is great, and I want to take it and steal it and use it. And
can I ask you one question before I feel I don't want to like take up too much time if there's folks waiting in the wings.
Oh yeah, sure, go ahead.
I guess I've just been curious for a while, like or thought I've been mulling over like, do you? One thing that I think is particular. I mean, one thing I love about your ASMR is, and I think the Tenet video is a great example of this, is that it has like what I would call an immersive quality to it, and I feel like you are able to do with, obviously very limited resources and making the most of, a set or an environment or, just one location or whatever, contributing to kind of like, sometimes like world building and just suggesting a larger world and, doing things that pull the viewer in. And I mean, do you feel like, is there anything in what makes you interested in doing ASMR? Are there similar creative energies or impulses that were also like involved in your work in game design? or do you feel like they're kind of like completely separate
No,
things?
I feel like they're the exact same things, right? Like they're, I guess maybe not exactly the same, but there are definitely like my arc as a game, when I worked in games, was basically artist to level designer to game designer, and then various things within game design, content design, and then systems design and that kind of thing. So the part of it that really appealed to me, I mean, it's a thing that appeals to me about, it's why I love Inside Number 9 so much, and prefer plays, and like, I love anytime there's like a super limiting framework and you say, well, here are the rules, right? Like, and you can only do things within this box. Like, so what can you do within this box? I find that for me, like much more inspirational than you can do anything you want, right? Like, and actually having like the more limitations you have to a point anyway, right? I feel like the more I enjoy being able to try and say, okay, well, I rise to that challenge of, well, I'll show you, right? Like that kind of thing. Not that I do, but that's the sort of the brat in me, I guess, who's like, well, you're saying I can't do this, I'm gonna do it. And so I think that applies for like, regardless if I was sculpting a model that could only have 500 polygons on it in one single 512 by 512 texture and somehow still had to look like a person, right? Like whatever that limitation was, I really enjoyed like taking that UV unwrapped map texture and like trying to get every pixel I could out of it. And it's weird. Like sometimes now I'll go back and look at some of the old assets that I've worked on, and I can look at like a texture, an unwrapped texture, and I can remember like the song I was listening to when I was painting this texture that's like 15 years old. I find that stuff that very bizarre. I don't know why that's so connected, but I think in those moments I was like so in like a zone of some kind that it really, really stayed with me. So when those moments occur, like they did with 10, and really it's not very often. I wish it happened more. I try to like, and I guess you can't really try to do it. It just either happens or it doesn't.
Same with my writing. Like I feel that.
Yeah. So there's definitely a relation.
Cool.
I don't know which is more fulfilling. I think probably game design was more fulfilling, but there was also a lot more that sucked about it. So.
Right. Well, thank you for indulging my curiosity there.
No problem. And if anybody has not read the article that we were talking about, it's I know it's on your, I don't know if it's a WordPress, or I don't know if you want to.
It's on Medium, and I think Q posted a link, but it's if you go to carolynpettit.medium.com, you'll find it.
If you go to Carolyn Petit, you're not gonna get it.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling in, Carolyn. I always love talking to you. So
likewise. And all right, see you soon.
Have a good night.
Bye.
That was really cool. Okay, and we have two more people lined up, and I'm gonna probably cut it off after the two. So say hi to Nick. Nick, what is can you hear me, by the way, Nick? Uh-oh. I hear you clicking.
Okay, I can hear you now.
You can, okay.
Yeah, I had the stream up just so that I would know what was going on. And then I also had this up just so that I wouldn't lose my place in queue.
Nick, there's something behind you on the wall.
There is.
I don't know what
it
it is.
There's a tape mural. It is the easiest way to not have a blank wall and also not damage the paint, hopefully. UNM uses latex paint, and that peels off with almost anything you can use to hold a poster on, including command strips.
I was going to say, that looks like the painter's masking tape, the blue tape there, right?
Yeah. It's actually funny. Painter's tape will also rip the latex paint.
Really?
But if you use the delicate tape and then put you put painter's tape over it, then it works a lot better.
you lost me, but it looks very interesting. It does its job because I'm like staring at it. How are you doing, Nick?
I am, it's been a hell of a couple of weeks.
I know you had some issues like a couple weeks ago. Has there been more? Or
Not really. Not really. It's you can trick yourself into thinking that you're fine when really you're just running on adrenaline.
oh,
And
but that runs out.
yeah. And so I was fine. I was, hyper performing for a really long time. And now things are kind of evening out. I've got a lot less going on now. And it's sort of hitting me in waves, which all sounds horrible. And my friends feel so bad for me because, they'll hear me say something like, "Oh yeah, I finally got bed sheets. I feel so great." And they're blown away by how terrifying that sounds.
Can you give a little context for what's going on, whatever you're comfortable giving? Because I know a little bit of what you're talking about, but I don't know what everybody knows. But yeah.
So I am in Paramedic Academy. And for context, that's maybe not equivalent to med school in the depth of content you're expected to learn, but it's also a little bit faster and it has more of a clinical focus. So it's not like, okay, well, you have a year to figure out what an IV is. It's like, okay, we're going to give you a needle. We're going to tell you to stick it in your friend because next week you're going to be sticking it in a stranger. Layered into that, there was this whole epidemic thing going on. I don't know if you guys know about that.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I got to tell you before you continue, Nick, I'm tempted to make a connection between your giving an IV to a friend and freeze tag. And I don't know if that would be inappropriate, but what if you are not very good at giving an IV to a friend and then they have to give one to you? Like at that point, would they maybe be like, well, that fucking hurt. What you did fucking hurt. So I'm not gonna, is there any vengeance going on in them?
I don't believe intentionally, but there's definitely people who you're afraid to stick or you're, going to go for something easier that's maybe not going to improve your skill because they're so good and you don't want to hurt them.
Gotcha.
I'm kind of maybe not famous, but in my class people knew me as the guy who you kind of didn't want to get paired up with.
Didn't
because
want
I would
to stick or get stuck by?
Both.
Okay.
Because I'm this really skinny dude. So all of my veins look good, but about half of them are actually bad because they move around too much.
Oh.
And then on top of that, I would take a super long time to start an IV because I wanted to like get really into the process and like, if I'm only going to have 5 seconds, then I want to take as long as I can now to just get everything right, get the habit down.
Maybe you can help me on this because, sometimes when I get an IV, like sometimes it's in the back of the hand, sometimes it's in the crook of the elbow. What is there for paramedics because you're like, you just need to do this as quickly as possible. It's not necessarily about what is going to be the most comfortable or it is what is going to be the quickest and most efficient, right? So is there like a location this is the go-to location for paramedics?
There are 3 places to go that are really good. And one of them isn't an IV, but I'll explain why in just a second. So the AC, which is right in the crook of the elbow, has the biggest, easiest to see, and most accessible veins. And because of that, you can get to the heart very quickly. So that is where we start. That's where we start in a rush. Yeah, right there. And if I pick the right arm, you can actually see I've got a little bit of a, not on this camera. I've got a good vein right there.
Okay.
But there's a problem with the AC, which is that it bends. If the patient does this, they can kink the netting. And if they pull away from you, then you can mess up all sorts of horrible stuff.
Right.
And the anatomy of the region can make it easy to miss. And because they're big veins, they're not held down very well. So there's sort of a movement to try to teach everyone to go more for the forearm because this doesn't bend.
But
at least it
hurt
shouldn't.
more, don't they? My recollection is getting it in the hand hurt a a lot.
Smaller needles hurt more, at least proportionally. And so if you're shooting for a smaller vein and you go for a smaller needle, which sometimes you should, then it can hurt more because you have a greater, the ratio of catheter to needle is different. So the part that actually hurts tends to be the plastic catheter around the needle. Because we pull the needle out once we put the IV in.
This to me, this is much worse than Saw. Like just talking.
Because the catheter always has to be the same size. So if you use a teensy weensy needle, there's this big lip of a catheter around it.
Oh, I'm shocked.
If you're using...
I would assume that like the catheter would have to snugly fit around the needle.
Well, it does, but that just means that it has a bigger sort of lip. And to be fair, the catheter actually does step down in size with the needle, but the ratio gets bigger, is the important part.
Okay.
The final, and so people are looking more at the forearm now because it's just harder to get things out of it. But
so you have to worry also about people like who are maybe who might
not
try
even
and
that.
tear
Just
out
like
stuff
if I'm doing this, like if I do this right now, I would kink both of my AC veins enough that an IV wouldn't work sometimes.
You put it here, you have like a bunch of tape around it or whatever, and you're pretty good to go.
Yeah. So that is the easiest to get and the safest-ish. And then there's something called an IO, which is a corkscrew. I refer to it as a corkscrew because that's what they use in the military. But it's a needle that's ungodly big, and it goes in your shin bone. And that is the best way to put fluids in someone in terms of getting it in fast and getting it to the heart quickly. Because it sort of goes all over.
Yeah, that sounds awful. When you say in the shin bone, like into a vein that runs along the shin bone? Is that...
No, into the marrow.
Into the marrow?
Yeah.
What the... And so you've been having to do this?
Yeah.
To your friends?
No. The IO part we don't do to friends. At least they don't stay that way after. But one of my professors, he's kind of crazy. He would do CPR on someone, and he was a big believer in you want to make sure the blood gets to where it needs to go, so you go as hard as possible. And if you break the ribs, what does that mean? You keep going because you're doing enough.
Yeah.
And he was crazy enough that he would walk into the patient's room if they came back and apologize for breaking their ribs and like let them kind of go at him for like dying on the table.
But I mean, you're talking about actual patients here.
Yeah.
So he saved their lives, right?
Yeah.
But broke a rib bone in the process, and
usually all of the ribs. He was kind of a muscular guy.
All of the ribs. Oh gosh.
Yeah. He was famous for two comments in our class. One of them was, well, you want to feel a pedal pulse on a patient. The goal of CPR is to get blood to the head. A pedal pulse is on your foot.
I was going to say, yeah.
But his thought was like, well, you don't want someone's toes falling off either, so get the blood down there.
Yikes. Sounds like a great teacher. I mean, certainly.
He was wonderful.
If your goal is to keep the person alive, that's, I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right?
He was also famous for the comment that he didn't know people got tired during CPR. And me personally, I engage in hero worship, and I think that is entirely true, and he just had perfect form. But that generated some anger amongst the class.
So, but is it because of form, or is it not just like this adrenaline of I am keeping this person alive, therefore I'm sort of ignoring
what
my
I
own
actually
fatigue?
think it was that he was a very mind over body person.
Oh.
And so he's able to just kind of go, yeah, I don't need to be in pain right now, so I'm not.
Right. I'll deal with my own pain after this essential stuff is done.
He would talk about how abusive his father was, or himself being homeless, or stuff like that. And he would ask us, like, what do you think of my father? Or what do you think of this person who treated me poorly when I was homeless? And if people said that they were angry at that person, he would actually criticize them. He would be like, you can't be angry with bad people, not only because it doesn't help, but also because you are going to treat them in the back of your ambulance. And if you're angry, it's going to affect, even if you don't care about them, your employment opportunities.
That's an interesting take. So his opinion was that it was not possible to shelve repressed, or like your repressed anger towards people in your own life that you saw mirrored in patients would somehow come out and not allow you to do your job as well as you should. Is that
it? He was speaking about his own father.
okay?
He wasn't speaking about anyone in our lives.
But he didn't mean like literally, like you may actually have to end up with your own father in the back of your ambulance, right? He was speaking
Well,
more
that is
generally?
something that can happen, but he was speaking more generally.
Okay, gotcha.
But his point was sort of more. He was a believer in the idea that you could control the directions your emotions went. So if there's someone who makes you angry in your life, over time, you can learn to change that emotional reaction from anger to empathy. And that is something that's neurologically true. It's just incredibly hard, and for a lot of people, not worth the effort.
This sounds like it goes beyond. I don't know what class or classes he's teaching, but yeah, this sounds like therapy.
It was. I
Yeah.
mean, he was. I use ancient in the same way that you would a dragon in D&D. He was an ancient doctor. Like, he remembered when opiates were starting to become a really big thing. And he was actually one of the guys who was like, hey, we're kind of doing too much of this, and like you're kind of selling people pain management rather than treating their pain.
Yeah.
And that's a really bad idea. And he was already an established doctor with some pull at that time.
Well, yeah. So he foresaw the opioid epidemic to some extent. Yeah. So let me ask you. You were at I could talk about this professor all night. Or the doctor, professor. I don't know if you're a doctor and a professor, you still go by doctor, right? They still go.
We call.
Okay. Yeah. All right. But last time we spoke, I think you were living at home. Is that right? You were living in a different place.
I'm hearing some clicking. There we go.
Sorry about that.
I can hear you now.
Last time we spoke, you were not living at the paramedics academy, right?
I'm still not living at the academy. I'm living at the university, which is associated with the academy.
Okay, but that's where you are right now.
Yes.
And that's not where you were a few weeks ago.
Yes, I'll cover that just now. So I'm in the paramedic academy. It's very stressful. On top of all of that, I was in a house with 5 people that I was happy to move into, but largely speaking, we were forced to move into a house that was too small because of the epidemic hitting, and with COVID restrictions going through the dorms, they couldn't keep all of us together, and they were kind of kicking us to the curb. And I moved in with a boyfriend of 1 year at the time, who I had been living with previously, but to cut a long story short, he was having some severe mental health and emotional health issues related to anger management. And there came a point where he kind of told me that I'm not sure I can make any more progress. It just takes too much energy to stay where I am.
Right.
But the problem was he had been staying where he was for about a year by the time he told me that. So now we're going from enough effort to make no progress to backsliding.
Yeah. So he stopped with the effort and reverted back to his old ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't say old ways necessarily. There was a little bit more going on under the hood, but yeah, he didn't come from such a good role model family, and that's not his fault. That doesn't make him a bad person. But when you start acting like your father, and you're in the memory of your father that you present to people as him threatening to kick you out of the house, and that's what you're starting to emulate,
Yeah.
that gets very upsetting very quickly. He never hurt me physically. He was not intentional in any of the ways he hurt me. But his anger and the way he treated me got to a point where I needed to leave that house. And so at between 5 and between the hours of 5 and 7 one morning, I moved out of that house entirely.
Can I ask, was
in
between the hours of 5 and 7, was it because you had to do so stealthily, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I had to, I chose to, but it was one of those, I don't know how this person is going to react.
Yeah.
And everything I own is either vital to my ability to succeed or incredibly sentimental. I don't have a lot of bits and bobs.
Right.
And I don't know that he wouldn't hurt me, but
he might break some stuff,
and like, I don't want to be coming back for things.
Yeah, right,
And so between the hours of 5 and 7, I just got out.
Jesus, Nick, I did not realize this was this. This sounds horrible.
And then 5 minutes later, I was in class. And it was on Zoom, and I had the good fortune that Wi-Fi was kind of in and out where I was.
So did you use that as a mask to sort of be like, oh, my Wi-Fi is not so good, and then you could kind of
not really, honestly. I was kind of like I would tell people like, hey, I've got to drive somewhere else and hopefully find better Wi-Fi.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
So you've moved 3 times. This is your 3rd move in the last 6 months. Is it? I don't know the timeline on this. I don't know.
I would say I've moved twice in the past year.
Okay. And how long have you been in paramedic school?
Oh, about 5-6 months at this point.
Okay.
Closer to 7.
Okay. So only one of these moves happened. Admittedly, it's the worst move, right?
Yeah. Well, and to make it all better, the other part of the story is that 2 weeks prior, my grandmother died.
Oh, jeez.
And so, and I'm not saying that as like, oh, pity me, or anything like that. More so, just like, yeah, I've been processing a little bit over the past few weeks.
It's one of the, like, when shit like that happens in succession, and especially if you're in the middle of something as stressful, and where like there's no, like, you can't just, well, I mean, I don't think you can just be like, look, I just need like a month to like process and kind of get my shit together, and then I can come back to this. You don't have that kind of leeway, I wouldn't think, right? You just have to be on. There's no.
I sent an email to my professors and to the academy director saying like, hey, I lost my grandmother recently. I may take a mental health day. It'll probably be a Monday, because that's the day we don't have any like testing to do and like no lab usually.
Right.
And I just wanted to let you know ahead of time so that if I tell you like 12 hours before, it's not a surprise. And the academy was very empathetic. And then I just kind of realized like there's no day I can take off. There's no content I can miss. There's no quiz I can miss. I'm just going to have to stick with it. And luckily there was a snow day that I kind of used to like chill.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So how are you now? Do you feel like you're?
People tell me I look physically healthier, and I think my face is like cleaner. In a like, not in a spiritual way, but like in the sort of like you can tell when someone's having a good day and a bad day, even if nothing has physically changed. It's something interesting about like mascot acting is that you can tell whether an actor is smiling beneath the suit just in the way they move.
How did we get to what?
In terms of like health and stuff, like
Gotcha.
if I just do my standard like stone customer service face,
Right.
you can tell whether I'm having a good day or not, even though there's no way to tell.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, yeah. Can I ask your boyfriend that you were living with? So you're no longer living together and you're no longer together. Is that correct?
God no. Yeah.
God no. You're no longer.
We are not together in any way.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And are you okay with that? Are you recovering from that? Are you heartbroken, or what is the?
I have learned to be somewhat careful about how I talk about this. So
I don't want to force.
No. I'm happy to talk about this. We're going to take a step back and examine the whole trauma. So when my grandmother, one of the last things she said to me, was that, Nick, you have a pure soul, and people will see that and they will want to cling to you, not because they are evil, but because they recognize that you can make them feel saved. But doing that will kill you.
Your grandmother said this to you?
Yeah.
That's very smart. That's very
one of the
insightful.
last things she said to me. And for pretty much her whole life, when my grandmother would talk to me, she gave me this sense of what's called a noblesse oblige, because she was a Californian noble during the time of the Spanish.
Oh.
Well, she wasn't alive then, but that is the family she
Yeah.
grew up in. And so she really imparted that on me. And especially being like in public health and stuff like that, I sort of recognize that I am an example for other people. And so I'm very open about the fact that, like, yes, I'm a dude who's been sexually assaulted. Yes, I'm a dude who's been in abusive relationships. Yes, I'm a dude who recently escaped a relationship that I wouldn't call abusive, but was definitely toxic, and I had to precipitously leave.
Yeah. Could have become abusive, certainly, right?
Yeah. And yes, I'm a dude with PTSD from something that isn't any of that. Because I hope to be a positive example for other people. So when talking about this, I try not to make it sound sketchy, because there's definitely a version of this which is just like, yeah, there's this guy who kind of left in like 2 hours under weird circumstances, didn't tell anyone he was doing it, kind of just woke up his boyfriend and said, hey, I'm going, and like just got in his car and left. That sounds horrifying. But if I kind of lay out the chain of events, it's a little bit more clear what was going on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
In my life, I have been in 4 or 5 relationships, depending on how you count. I have always been the one who ended the relationship, and I only ever end the relationship when I don't see any chance of us, like, continuing the relationship. So I'm almost never heartbroken by the time the breakup happens, if that makes any sense.
That makes you, I think, wise beyond your years, Nick.
Unfortunately.
Sticking around in toxic relationships is like, I mean, I've done it, right? Like, I find it very,
I did it
very
for 3
difficult.
months. You know, I'm not going to say that like it was one moment and I was just out. It was something that like my mom was talking to me after the breakup.
He was working on it, right? I mean, he at least at that point he was, right? Or had he already stopped?
I believed he was.
Oh, okay. But you believed he was, right? So you stuck around.
And he believed he was. I am suspicious of that concept now.
Okay. So in hindsight, he probably wasn't, or maybe wasn't. Let's not, I guess, judge other people, right? But he maybe wasn't being forthright with you about what he was working on or not working on, or how hard he was working on it. Certainly, the results.
I think he wasn't being forthright with himself.
There you go. Okay.
I don't imagine he's watching. I don't imagine he'll ever watch.
Right.
And I don't imagine anyone who knows him would be able to tell. And hopefully, if they did, they would take my side. But he, to put it simply, he was someone who was very accusatory towards other people. And I think part of it was so that he could take people down to a level where, well, no one else is meeting my standards, so why should I?
I'm not 100% following.
And so I think that he was deceiving himself into believing that he was trying, when really he just recognized that it would be good to be that person, but he was kind of constantly making excuses for why he wasn't yet.
Okay. So he was sort of, he was playing a part, sort of.
Yeah.
And trying to cast himself as a sympathetic, almost like,
Yeah.
like, well, I'm rehabilitating, right? Like and I need I need you to stick around, and I need you to be like someone I can rely on. I need you to be able to put up with my occasional relapses or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's
It
rough.
was,
I'm sorry, Nick.
I appreciate that. It was always kind of funny to me, especially after the breakup. And this is a total like film nerd thing. I really like BoJack Horseman because I like to see that struggle, not like in a like vicarious like hey someone has it worse than me way, but just like I like to see that examined, and I like sort of the conversation about masculinity that occurs through that show. And he absolutely hated it because it reminded him of his father, and it reminded him of all of these horrible things that people associated with men. And that he himself associated with masculinity, which all makes a lot of sense. I can see why someone wouldn't like that. But one of the things he hated was I said, I can really get being BoJack. I know what it's like to be BoJack. Maybe not, a has-been, but like I understand the emotional state.
Right.
And he thought that was evil in some way. And I never had the heart to tell him, is like, you should relate to him more.
Like you said, like his nearness to it probably is exactly what blinded him to it.
Yeah.
That is I mean, I love BoJack too, and I love the sort of pathos, and the contrast. Well, I guess we're not really talking about BoJack, but I do love the contrast that exists in BoJack. Between the absurdity of the presentation and the sort of this extremely detailed sort of delve into this deeply flawed person, right? And how many times he is given opportunities for redemption and just fails, or succeeds, for a brief amount of time and then fails again, and you get. It's pretty well rounded, right? Like, I mean, it does tell the story of his father and his mother, and it's all very tragic. But in the end, it doesn't excuse him, right?
Yeah.
It gives you the context, kind of like we were talking about before, right? Like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you an excuse to be any way. It just gives you the context for why you are the way you are. Nick, man. I can't imagine like the amount of stress that you have gone through, and now the amount of stress that you're going to have. How much longer is paramedic school?
2 weeks.
What?
2 weeks. We have a review week, and then we have a final. And then we have the entire semester is like internships, like field training, which is unpaid labor.
Wait, so
today, as of today, I know everything, or I'm supposed to know everything, or I'm expected to know everything that a paramedic would need to know in the field.
And how do you feel about that?
I'm ready.
That's supposed to be,
and that's not a good answer, but
response.
I'm ready. Yeah. A lot of people feel unready. A lot of people are unready. From everything I have seen, I am ready to be. One of our instructors jokes about how at the end of this course, you'll be ready to go out there and be mediocre medics, just like the last class. And not because like, oh, you don't know enough because you're not good enough, but because it's a largely experience-based craft.
Yeah. But you have been on calls like shadowing other paramedics. I mean,
I've worked as a paramedic for I basically had a full-time job for a month and a half. As part of the clinicals that we did.
So whatever the exam is, the final or whatever. You're confident you're going to pass with flying colors. You're anxious about it.
I'm going to pass.
Yeah. Okay. That's all. That's. I mean,
I pride myself on my ability to perform under pressure, particularly in a medical context. I don't pride myself on my ability to take tests anymore.
Gotcha. Well, but then this will be it, right? Like, and then it will be a lot of stress in actual real life medical situations every day.
Yeah. Well, not every day. Luckily, we have the 12-hour schedule, so it's 3 or 4 on.
Interesting question. Like, do they do any kind of thing where, like, when they're allocating medics or paramedics to situations, will they have like, well, you're now on like a light day, so you only get deployed to obviously they're all emergencies, right? Or they wouldn't be calling paramedics, but maybe less intense ones to kind of give you lighter days sometimes, or is that?
There's emergencies and there's urgencies, and some ambulances respond to emergencies and some respond to urgencies, or at least they try.
Yeah.
But the way that it usually works, at least in America, is that there is an ambulance in. I don't know much about your area, so and I don't know much about my area, so I'm just going to make up words here. So there's an ambulance there's an ambulance stationed in neighborhood A.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that happens in neighborhood A that falls within that ambulance's capabilities, they are responsible for responding to.
Got it.
And there's an ambulance associated with neighborhood B. And anything that happens in neighborhood B, they are expected to respond to.
Yeah.
And if neighborhood B has a call, and then neighborhood B gets another call while ambulance B is
engaged,
busy, ambulance A shows up.
Gotcha. So there's really not the flexibility to do that kind of scheduling.
You don't have enough people, you don't have enough time.
Yeah. Okay.
But there are ways that you can kind of shuffle that. But in order to shuffle it around, then you have to get someone to come in to work your area, which they may not know as well as you. Maybe with your partner, who they're not going to be as familiar with. And maybe with your gear, which they may not have experience with.
Nick, I feel like you've endured a trial by fire, right? And I mean, I'd love to say the thing is, like, in a way, your life is going to be a trial by fire, right? Like, I mean, you're going to have these things, these emergencies come up a lot, right? And so there's going to be, but if you're more comfortable in those contexts, and I imagine as time goes by, you get more and more comfortable in those contexts and being around people who,
I get the sense you want this to draw to a close. Should I avoid tangents?
Oh, well, we have one more person in the guest room I want to be sure to get to, but if you you want to do one more tangent.
I have one more tangent, and you're going to appreciate it, I think. When I was in high school, there was a chlorine gas leak that in the school had to be evacuated. Our principal was new. He was hired that year. He was not very good. In fact, he was having a panic attack in his office the entire emergency. And I ended up leading the response.
What grade were you?
10th.
Okay.
That was when I had my basic license.
So your principal, the principal of your school, didn't have the ability to cope with a chlorine gas leak, which sounds pretty horrible.
Yeah. It affects your lungs. It's pretty bad. But the thing that was funny to me, and the reason I bring this up, is that we were doing a simulation online where you are called to a school that's out in the middle of the desert, and several of the students were reported to be unresponsive in the pool. You arrive, and there is this tangy smell to the air, and many of the students are reporting trouble breathing.
Oh.
And I looked at my instructor, and I kind of squinted at him, and he just gave me this blank stare, and then went, "Oh, Nick, you can step aside for the rest of this." Yeah. And so now I'm kind of like, you know what? If that's how the rest of life is going to be, where I've just done it all already, I'm good.
Well, but yeah, it probably won't though. I'm sure there are some things where
hopefully not.
You still have the capability to be shocked.
I didn't experience that yet.
What's that? Say that last bit again.
I didn't predict COVID. I hadn't experienced that yet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I would imagine
I'm
you're
sure
still
there will
going
be.
to, yeah, you're still going to, if you're interning starting after the summer, is that correct?
During the summer.
During the summer. Okay. Yeah. So you're still going to, that's going to be part of your daily routine. I'm glad that you're like knowing you. I know I don't know you very well, but knowing what I know about you, I'm glad that you are out there doing this. But I'm sorry that it has been such a trial to get there. I hope that you find it as rewarding as it seems. It seems like it would be high intensity work, but very gratifying work, right?
It is. It is very gratifying.
Yeah, yeah. I hope that continues, and I hope that that your next relationship is better. Yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
I figured it out. I figured out that I have bad taste, and I need to fix that, and then I can have a good relationship. I hope.
When you say you have bad taste, you're drawn to troubled people. Is that?
That, and I'm just not good at figuring out who's troubled.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So it's not specifically like you want to save people. I guess I was wondering if that was the flip side of like what your grandmother had said to you.
Yeah.
Like, which is people want you to save them, and maybe you also want to save people.
That's definitely part of it. That's part of the bad taste.
Gotcha.
Not that you should never get into a relationship just because you want them to be a patient, but
Only save the people you're paid to save, Nick.
yeah, that is my opinion now. I have one last sucker punch of a tangent to hit you with, and then I'll get out of your hair.
Oh boy, sucker punch.
Sailor, I want you to look at me.
Okay.
Okay. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that you're talking about getting?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's only one dose, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But do you want to know what is also one dose? Getting the first shot of every other vaccine that is just as effective.
Okay. Yes. Well,
And so
look,
if you just get the like Pfizer or the Moderna, and you get scared because you
don't
got
take the second
a
dose.
flu,
Yeah.
you don't take the second dose. It's kind of like getting the Johnson vaccine, except you then have the option to get the second dose later.
Yeah.
And so if you don't get scared, you can get the second dose, and then you can be even less scared. Okay?
That's excellent advice, which I'm gonna ignore.
Oh, I know. I just want it on camera that you're saying that, you know?
No, I'm gonna right. I'm probably not gonna be given a choice, right? It's probably just gonna be
Hopefully.
you're given what you're given.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I had the choice, I would probably.
In good medical conscience, I should say that I hope that you are given a choice as a viewer who would like you to be alive for selfish reasons entirely.
Well,
I know a guy.
if you can hook me up, then.
Yeah.
All right, Nick. Thank you so much, and I hope that your finals go okay, and I just hope that it's bluer skies from here on out for you.
Oh, it will be. It will be.
And thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you again soon, Nick.
Talk to you again soon.
All right. Wow, that was deep. Okay, we have. I feel really bad. This person has been in the green room for a really long time, so I want to bring them out as soon as possible. So here we go. Hello, Warp Raven. Oh,
Hey.
I can hear my
Can you-
voice
can you hear
echoing.
me? Oh, okay.
You don't have the headphones or anything, do you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay. I was a bit worried about audio.
Oh no, I can hear you fine. It's just I can hear myself. I'm just staring at the thing behind you.
Oh, what that? Or
Looks like two cowboys at a bar.
no?
Okay, I'll wait till the headphones come out.
Okay.
All right, I just muted you for a minute there, Warp Raven, until you got your headphones on because it was. Oh, wait, there they go.
Oh no.
No, not yet. All right, you give me the okay sign when you're good to go. Because when I hear myself echoing, I start to stutter and try and slow down to catch up to myself. Nasha's saying you all have the same accent. Any luck there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, and I don't hear
Oh, good.
myself. Perfect.
Excellent.
All right. How are you doing? And two, should I call you Warp, or do you go by, or Raven? Actually, it looks like Raven.
Raven's fine.
Okay,
that's
perfect.
cool.
Perfect. How are you doing? It's good to meet you. I know who you are, right? Obviously from the chat, but also from some awesome artwork that you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really good. You did one, and then you also did, well, I think it was two pieces, right? So you did one from the Tenet video.
The Tenant one, yeah, I kind of like tagged you in that because the other one I didn't because I was like, it's not finished. I didn't want you to see it, so.
Was that the underwater one?
Yeah,
Oh, man, I
that's
love that one.
the drowned Phoenician sailor.
Yeah, because it's so thematically on point. I thought that was great. That was really cool.
So many references in it.
Yeah, I was I don't know if I got them all, but I saw the frog. I saw definitely Coke.
I don't know if I should tell you.
Or I missed something.
There is a Miami reference, but it's so minuscule. I think you'd
Is it a shell?
hardly notice it. No. It's because there's like a stack of books in one section of onto the right hand side. It's actually like a little like slip that's kind of sticking out of the book that says Miami, but it's spelled backwards.
Oh, that's very clever. No, I don't think I caught that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go back and look. So is that your job? Is that what you do? Are you a digital artist?
Well, partially. I'd love to be able to make it full time, but yeah. Times as it is at the moment, it's quite difficult. So I work in retail part time as well, and illustration has kind of always been a passion of mine, which I've just recently got back into. But I do kind of like prop making and cosplaying and stuff as well.
Do you live in
side hustle.
southern United Kingdom?
The northwest, so it's
that-
kind of on the border to Wales.
Is this like Birmingham or what? Northwest?
No.
No.
So
What is your accent? I guess is what.
I don't know. I've moved that many times.
It sounded to
I
me. It
think
sounded like.
most people would call it an English accent, but I'm actually born in Wales and I've moved around quite a lot, so I've kind of like amalgamated different accents all together.
Do you speak Welsh? No.
I wish I did. I wish I paid attention, but yeah.
It's very confusing, it seems. And looking at it, it seems very odd. I'm recognizing the talisman on your neck as an eldritch symbol. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well done.
It reminds me of. Actually, I think I'm sure they use it in more than this, but I think they actually use it in Eldritch Horror, the fantasy flight game. I think.
Yeah, it's one of the elder signs, the seal to seal away the ancient ones or the old ones. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you work retail, you do digital art, right? What else do you do? You gotta do three things.
Actually, that there is something I wanted to mention because I found this really spooky. I don't know if it was just by coincidence or I don't know, just randomness. But the last video that you made with the Lamet configuration box and talking about personal demons, I was like, that's very coincidental because.
Oh man, but wait, can you hold that closer? That's like a.
Oh wait,
it's
like
kind of
drooped slightly because it's top heavy, but.
Wait a minute, did you make part of that? Is that
yeah,
3D
I mean,
printed?
The bottom part is 3D printed, but I 3D modeled it and then printed it to be cast.
And then what is the top part? That can't be. That's not 3D printed, right? That's sculpted, or.
Yeah, this is just all clay, so...
Oh man, that is great. So, but that's...
So when you were talking about the Hellbound Heart, I was like, oh right, okay.
But that looks
That
like...
is really bizarre.
Is that set? That looks... Could you smush that right now? That's not...
No, it's quite
Oh,
solid.
okay, gotcha. All right. The color, I guess the color is like natural clay, and it almost looked like it had been sculpted,
Yeah.
but not baked or
I
kilned.
don't know
or whatever.
how well my camera can...
Oh, it's getting it. It's getting it. But yeah, your box is actually... Mine is just like flat and, just a tin box, that was like $5. I really only got it because I wanted to pull something out of it and have a light
I know,
in
but
it.
it was so cool. I'm really digging the whole skull tapping thing as well at the moment.
I think I got lucky with one of the skulls that I got. When you tap it, it makes excellent tapping noises. The other one's not so much, but there's one of them that I got. I don't know what it's cast out of. It's a little different than the other ones, and I really like the way that one sounds. Like the one that looks cooler, I don't really like, or has more detail. I like the way this one looks,
Yes,
but I
that's
don't
the
like
one.
the way it sounds as much.
That's so cool.
I prefer the other one. But yeah, that is a good coincidence. So you're a Clive Barker fan or a horror fan in general, or?
Horror fan in general. I literally reread the Hellbound Heart, I think February. So I thought, I gotta make myself a heart with pins in it
So if
for a
rereading it
Valentine's Day
caused...
post.
Oh, you never a Valentine's Day post. That's but if rereading it caused you to make something like that, then it must have held up on rereading, right? I haven't read it in a long time, so I sometimes wonder if I read it again, what I would think of it.
It was actually a audiobook that was read by Clive Barker himself. So
Oh.
I thought, I have to do this.
I would imagine he did a pretty good performance.
Yeah, one of the characters' voices I didn't quite exactly like, just the way he did it. I don't know.
I don't even remember,
very
like,
questionable.
how close was the Hellbound Heart to Hellraiser? Were there even Cenobites in Hellbound Heart? Did it get that far?
There was. Pinhead did not exist.
Yeah, okay, so Pinhead was not in the
uh,
Hellbound Heart.
No, it
Okay.
was purely, I think, a female character.
But that whole idea of Cenobites and demons of pleasure and pain or what have you, that was still in the Hellbound Heart.
Yes.
So for people who don't know, right, the Hellbound Heart is the short story that Clive Barker wrote on which Hellraiser, the movie, which he then wrote and directed, was based. But it's been so long since I've read the Hellbound Heart. I just don't remember what was in it and what wasn't. I don't know if he just totally rewrote it for the movie or not. So yeah, I was curious about that. But yeah, okay, so a horror fan, what do you think of the Saw movies? Yeah, you don't think much of them, do you?
Purely entertainment wise, they're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, that's kind of that's a good reaction.
But
Yeah.
like I was saying in the chat about the whole scene in, I think it was the second one with the pit full of needles, was a bit.
Oh right, yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
that was a little bit, but you know what? So that's not that elaborate. That was literally just like a bucket or like a giant hole filled of syringes, right? It wasn't like some crazy contraption. So yeah, that one actually did get me a little bit because it was Shawnee Smith that got thrown in there, I think, right? And then she's got like all these needles coming out of like different parts of her as she's down there. Yeah, that got to me. That did get to me. Yeah, that was the second one you say?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've watched any of them.
What is? Have you seen any horror movies recently that are fairly modern that you like a lot? Because I'm always looking for good scary shit.
Sometimes I just watch absolute trash, which like they're purposely made bad horror movies.
I totally would go for those as well.
Like I don't think you would.
Well, I mean, like if Riff Tracks did something on them, I would definitely. Are you familiar with Riff Tracks?
No, I've
Or
not seen.
Mystery Science Theater 3000? Did you ever heard of
Oh,
that?
Mystery Science Theater. Yeah.
Yeah. Riff Tracks is basically like the guys from Mystery Science Theater 3000 who have gone on and basically just done commentary on a bunch of B movies. And there's actually a bunch available on Amazon Prime right now. Like if you search Riff Tracks, it's not a commercial for Amazon Prime or anything, but if you search Riff Tracks, you can find dozens of movies that they've done actual commentaries to, which is, I find that totally enjoyable, especially to have it on the background while doing something else. So what did you have something you wanted to talk about, Raven? Was there something you wanted to bring up or ask or?
Man, I did, but I just like completely blanked because I'm kind of like, to be honest, I'm kind of a bit flagging because it's like 10 minutes past 3 o'clock here.
Oh my gosh, what are you doing up so late?
I always am.
Well, if you're reading the Hellbound Heart,
the creative brain never stops.
Yeah.
I was like, get ideas for things at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So
you work? Do you like work retail during the day and then do art at night and basically not sleep very much?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So what is that painting that I misidentified behind you? It's not two cowboys at a.
It's Predator and Alien. Oops, that way.
Oh my gosh! I thought those were big hats.
Playing a game of chess.
How did I get that so wrong? I still am having trouble seeing. Yeah, I think it's just because it's dark.
Can you see?
Yeah, no, it's in frame. It's just, yeah, I'm interpreting it. And it's funny, my mind is not letting me I can see that it is a xenomorph now, sitting opposite Predator, but my brain still wants to see two cowboys with big hats. So
I'd love to see them with hats.
Yeah. So I've seen you in chat like a lot for a while, right? Like for, I don't know how long. Do you know how long?
Well, I started watching your streams, I think, around about November or December last year, I think.
Oh, so
I
that's
can't remember exactly. But...
That's a good stretch. Any recommendations? Things I should change, do differently?
I think you're doing exceptionally well.
Oh,
you know. And the community is absolutely wonderful. You know, like people in chat are just so friendly, and it's
yeah, that is my
nice...
favorite part. That is definitely my favorite part. Let's see. If you don't have any questions, Raven, I don't I don't know how to continue the conversation. I realize it's very late there, and you might not be 100% firing on.
Like I said, I'm kind of flagging a little bit, so I do apologize to anybody.
Well, you were in the green room for like an hour. I apologize for that.
Was it that long? Wow. Okay.
I think it was maybe even longer than that. I just went in order of who called, to try and keep it somewhat fair, but you ended up calling third, which sucked. Sorry about that. But
it's fine.
Yeah, it was good to talk to you.
I always learn something new when I come into these chats, so.
That is the highest form of praise right there, and I appreciate that. And it's good to talk to you. It's good to meet you and put, although I guess I've seen your face, so either like in your avatar or something, I think or maybe it's just because you've been in the green room for the last hour that I feel like I'm familiar with your face. But yeah, I appreciate you now being able to more concretely put a face to the avatar. Your avatar is a version of you, isn't it? Is it? Or was?
Yeah, I think I'm like wearing elf ears or something in it.
Okay, then that's probably what it is. Okay, well, thank you for calling in, Raven. I really appreciate it. And that was a really cool heart. You did all of that. You 3D printed it, and you sculpted it, and you put it together. You did all that yourself. Where'd you get access to the 3D printer?
Bought it.
You own a 3D printer?
Yes. They've got like maybe 4 different types of 3D printers.
Wow.
2 which are filament based, which what this is printed out of. And then a couple which are resin printers, which basically UV light shines through at the bottom where there's a screen, and it has like a vat of resin liquid at the top, and then that kind of like sets the resin.
So it makes like
solid.
layers essentially, and then like does
It
one
does,
layer
yeah.
and then another and another. So why do you have so many 3D printers?
Because I make props, and that's what I do.
Wow. Wow. Do you have any others that you can show? You don't have to. Obviously, if you had one around, the Hellbound Heart one was great.
Actually, yeah, there is. It's not something that I sort of like that much, but because Star Wars and hey ho.
Okay. Yeah, I think she said she had 4 3D printers. My knowledge of 3D printers is they just break all the time. And that's huge. So so did you have to do that in pieces and then assemble it? How did you do like the top dome part? Was that in the resin one?
So this was like separate. So the top bit's separate to the bottom bit. So I'm trying to where this would be sectioned off. So it would have been printed that way, upside down.
Wow.
For the first section, and then for this bit, the dome bit would have been printed this way around. So this part was like flat on the bed.
And this is all with the resin printer?
Oh no.
This is all filament.
This one's all filament, but this has been like sanded and filled and.
Oh, so did you use the printout as like the structure, but then filled in and smoothed it out more?
Yeah.
How long did that take to print?
I think it was probably about a couple of days.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I've had no luck. Like my 3D printers, like,
which is quite good actually, considering, because sometimes they can take up to a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and then they break halfway through, or something gets screwed up, and it just doesn't. I have had no luck with 3D printers at all. But maybe it's something that it's been a few years, so maybe technology has come along a ways in the past couple of years, and they're more reliable now. I don't know.
It has. It's quite surprising actually, what you can do with 3D printers, but it's kind of like a skill in itself that needs to be learned, because there's so many different elements to how a 3D print can go wrong.
Right.
I'm still learning myself, because I'm kind of like more traditional.
Wait, say the last thing again. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You said you're kind of what?
I'm still kind of learning about 3D printing. I'm not like fully like. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but
I know almost nothing about it. I just know like you have to really plan out what you're doing, because like some shapes that you would think would be super easy, it's like no, you can't do a shape like that. And then some that are difficult, and you'd be like, oh well, I don't think this can be done.
Yeah.
They can do them, right? So it seems like a skill in and unto itself. So yeah, it's pretty impressive, Raven. I gotta say.
I was going to ask you, actually, there's one of the questions.
Oh, you remember.
My brain this evening. As being like a fan of horror and all things spooky, have you had any unusual experiences that have happened to you that you might have not necessarily been able to explain?
No, I wish I had. I've tried to put myself in situations where that would happen, right? Like, or where you would expect something like that to happen. But I've never had anything happen to me that I could not explain using means that non-supernatural explanations. I want to. I mean, I feel like I can't believe. And even if I did experience something like that, I think where my mind would go, I used to think where my mind would go would be, oh, you've gone crazy, right? Now I think my mind would go like, to something like, oh, well, there are other dimensions and other things that we just don't understand, and we're not supposed to see these things, and our senses evolved to see the things that we need to survive, not necessarily to see the world as it is. and I would probably just attribute it to that and then go about my merry way, unless it was something so like specific. I don't know. I don't believe in like ghosts as these anthropomorphic things or spirits from another, like that kind of thing. I don't.
No,
believe
I
in.
totally get that.
But I'm not. If I'm wrong, great. I would love for there to be an afterlife because I don't want to die completely. How about you? Have you?
It's
That's a
been
yes.
quite a few. Well, yeah. There's been a few occasions where it's kind of like a borderline. Is this actually sleep paralysis that's kind of happened, or whether it's, I don't know. It's really weird. I think at one point I was under a lot of stress when I was going through college, because it was like the final few weeks to an exam or something, and I thought that might have been partially the reason behind it, but I'm not the kind of person who has ever suffered with like sleep paralysis that I know of, or any sort of sleepwalking or anything to do with that. So I think I was staying at a hostel at the time, and we were in bunks, so I had one person who was sleeping above me in the bunk, and there was like a separate bed the other side of the room, and that you could hardly see anything in the room anyway. It was just like maybe like a little bit of light that was coming in through the window, but not much at all.
Right.
So I kind of turned over to go to sleep, and the person in the bunk I heard move above me. So I thought they were like, oh, they're trying to get out of bed. And then they kind of like leaned over the side of the bed, and all I could see, because she had like really long hair, and all I could see was the hair, but I couldn't see her face. And I could just about see, like, I couldn't make out her face, but I could just see like the reflection of light in her eyes, which was really strange. And thinking with like sleep paralysis, you can't move, and you normally get like noises or something that I can't really explain, but I don't know why, but I sat back up in bed, and I kind of like, she reached out towards me, and she had something in her hand, and I was just like, okay, this is just really strange. Why am I trying to reach out to this person? And then I literally blinked and it had gone, so I was like...
And the person was gone.
Yeah. And so I completely freaked out. I was awake, and the person next to me in the bed woke up because my sudden reaction was just like, ah!
That's hold on 1 second here. I want to be sure. There's a short story. It's not in this one. There's a short horror story called The Upper Berth. That sounds a lot like that. Right? It wasn't a woman. It was a dead sailor, and it was on a boat. But it was the same kind of thing. It was someone who slept on the lower bunk, and they woke up in the middle of the night, and there was a drowned sailor who was sleeping in the upper berth. That's the name of the short story. But who had died like on a previous voyage or something like that. I don't remember all the details, but when you were talking about that, I was like, oh, this sounds like the upper berth. It sounds scary as hell. Do you think you were just having a nightmare?
I have one that's scarier.
Oh, okay. Let's hear the scary one.
I don't actually, I couldn't say, because it felt like I was awake. And yet it just seemed really bizarre that I would actually physically sit up. Because like I said, I've never had any sort of like sleepwalking experiences or anything like that. Or like I've never acted out in dreams or that I know of.
Right. Well, but so what's the scarier one? Really strange. Is it too much for 3 a.m.?
Maybe for my brain right now. I don't know about yours.
Well, it's not for mine, but I don't want to get you in a situation where you're not going to be able to sleep because you're thinking about this too much.
Trying to explain. It was at my ex-partner's old house, at his parents, and we were both lying in bed talking about random stuff, but we were both lying on our back looking at the ceiling and just randomly chatting about stuff. And you know, sometimes when you kind of like the state between kind of like near enough falling asleep but not quite, and you kind of see like black spots forming. Yeah. It's kind of getting to that point where that there was kind of like this black thing at the top of the ceiling, which I thought, yeah, I'm just really tired. This is just my brain having a moment. I don't know. So this kind of cloud thing kept getting bigger and then bigger.
Did your partner see?
I was getting to that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. It's
you
fine.
tell the story.
It was really freaky. So I was like, okay, this isn't right. Something's not right here. Because it just kept moving towards the bed, kept getting bigger and bigger, and like all these kind of like faces started bubbling out of it, like bubbling and popping. I swear we weren't on drugs or anything.
So you said we, so you kind of answered but go on.
No, it's fine. And it wasn't that far away from the bed that I started freaking out, and before I actually said anything, he was like, "Do you see that?" And I was like, "What?" And he just like turned the light on, so literally just grabbed the light, switched it on, and there's just like nothing there. But the fact that we both had seen it was just like so.
And you both had seen the same thing.
Because he said it before I'd even mentioned that there was something.
He said, "Did you see that?" But like, did you both described it the same way? It was the same thing that you both saw?
It's because he said, did you see that?
Right.
So I was just like, my instant reaction was to turn the light on.
Got it. Yes. And then once the light was on, you were like, well, yeah, I did see it. It was this big black blob with faces coming out of it. And he was like, yeah, that's exactly what it was, right? What I'm saying is you both saw the same thing. You correlated that you saw the same thing. Right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I sent him a photo a couple of years later. I was like, hey, do you remember this one time that we were having this conversation about this particular thing in bed? And I just sent him the photo of the thing that we both saw, and he was just like, oh my god, I thought you'd forgotten about that.
Was there anything about the house? Was it like a really old house or anything like that?
It was. It'd been there for quite a long time. I think it was like 200 years old.
Oh yeah.
I think. Yeah. So all the furnishings and stuff were quite like old style, mahogany sort of like wooden floors and wooden banisters and stuff like that. So it was kind of like part of an old Tudor building. So I don't know what sort of like the history behind it was.
Well, the provenance checks out, but yeah. So what is your explanation for that? Do you think shared hallucination? What do you think happened there?
I have no idea to this day, but yeah. I'm always open-minded to stuff like that. I don't necessarily sort of believe in ghosts or anything, but it kind of made me question a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds scary as hell. I mean, it'd be scary if you were alone, probably, but at the same time, it would be harder to verify, right? Like if I was alone and I saw that, I would just be like, oh, my mind playing tricks on me, right? But two people saying the same thing, harder to just kind of brush that away, right? I have to ask, what is the thing that you're fidgeting with? Because it sounds awesome, and I want to get one.
It's actually a pet ball.
So what? Huh?
So it's a pet toy.
Oh, it's a
so-
pet ball. Pet ball. Okay.
Yeah, it flashes the light as well. But it's really great. I'm in love with this at the moment. Cause
Yeah, it sounds like it makes like little popping noises when you squeeze it. Is it? Or you're okay. Gotcha. That thing's great. Oh my
also,
god.
it kind of reminds me of bubble wrap. Because, like, if you twist it as well, you know, sometimes when you want to cheat with bubble wrap, you will kind of just
Oh yeah.
grab
Yes.
a piece and you twist it.
Yeah, you can get a lot
Kinda feels
done
like that.
if you twist it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not as satisfying though.
I never thought to look up like pet supplies for ASMR, and the light is good too. Huh. Well,
It's great discovery.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Those are good stories, Raven. I have no explanation for you. I would maybe not sleep in any more Tudor buildings. And well, actually, no, I probably would. And I would hope that it happened again and have a camera with me or something.
Not recently.
Yeah, so
Unfortunately.
nothing recently. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for calling in. I think I'm probably gonna wrap things up, but it was really good talking to you,
And you.
Yeah, and I'll see you in chat.
Yeah.
Thank you for staying up so late too. That was and staying in the green room so long.
I'm gonna go sleep now.
All right, take care, Raven. Good night.
Bye.
That was cool. Those were. This was, I think, a show that, or a podcast or whatever this is. I would call it a success. It's good length, interesting people to talk to. We went on weird tangents, and I had fun. I missed this. It's funny at the beginning. I was kind of saying how, maybe I didn't miss it so much, and I was kind of like, well, maybe this is, not something that I want to necessarily continue doing, but actually doing it, actually getting, it's just starting it. Like there's that inertia to starting it, and then once it starts, it just kind of takes on a life of its own, and that's a lot of fun to be a part of. So I'm gonna keep doing it. I want to thank everybody, and of course, thank the community, right? I love all of you, and if you're not on the Discord, hop on the Discord. Q is mentioning, what are you mentioning here, Q? Playing some games April 17th. That's like 10 days away. That is a long, people are going to forget. You got to remind people next week. Oh, hey, this the other Nick. I'm assuming you got a jab. Congratulations. Hope to join you soon. So yeah, I will see you all next week, and I hope that everybody's able to get to sleep after the spookiness that Raven revealed to us. And if you are falling asleep and you see a black blob appear on the ceiling above you and faces bubbling out of it, screaming in agony, or if you are for some reason sleeping on the lower bunk of a bunk bed and there's no one else in the room with you, and yet you see a spectral woman reach her hands down from the upper bed, and you can see the glinting of light off her eyes. Tell us about it next week. All right. Take care, and everybody sleep well, and I will see you all soon. Good night.